3. This one here has too many like geometric shapes. So forgiving. Let's look at some less forgiving work under content-aware fill 3. This one here has too many like geometric shapes and there's too many kind of differences here. Those first two examples were nice ones where the background was all consistently the same texture. This one here is going to be okay. I'm going to go back to my lasso tool. I'm going to zoom in. Now this is where you might spend a little bit more time being closer because the background is so different. So I'm going to go around them and spend a little bit more time clicking. I'm going to get the editor to speed this up. All right, we're back. That took me all of about a minute. So we're going to go to Edit, Fill, and go. Content-aware fill, and go again. Let's hit deselect. It's pretty good. You know, there's some obvious defects there, but at a glance, there's like, you can see the edge of that's not great, but man, it's pretty close. There's a shadow that we probably need to remove off him. But in all honesty, other than now grabbing the rectangle tool and kind of grabbing bits, copying and pasting them, moving them over with the move tool and trying to like maybe feather the edges, that's what I go do next, and that's the only real other way. So it's done a pretty neat job. Now, before I move on to the next bit, I just want to show you, like, we haven't used the lasso tool very much, and you might be finding it quite problematic. So I'm going to move the person back in, and I'm going to show you a couple of things you might run into with the lasso tool. Okay, so if you are finding this polygonal lasso tool super hard to use, just go to this lasso tool, the first one, just click hold, and you can just drag around it if you've got a steady enough hand. Okay, that'll work fine. But if you do really want to master this polygonal, I'm going to stop saying it now, the one with the straight edges, okay, watch this. If I click once, and then sometimes if I get close to the edges, if everyone wants to do this, I'll show you because like when I teach people this happens all the time, they kind of end up in no man's land, like, oh man, how do I get back? The trick is, once you've finished, like, well, got lost, hit escape on the keyboard. That's your like, I'm giving up, I'm going to start again button. Okay, escape on the keyboard. Okay, the other thing is like, if you do go all the way around, I'm cheating here by doing it in nice big chunks, and you get back here and you're like, it won't finish. Why can't I find the end? What you can do is just double click, and it will find the end and join it up for you. So those are the two things you might run into when you're using that tool. You can use any tool. You can use the quick mask selection and go into that select and mask and expand it. That could be a good way of doing it, but I don't think you're going to get much better results. Now, this last example here, 04, this has the same problem as the last one. I want you to practice on this one though. Go around the edges with the selection tool, any tool you like, so you can get rid of this young man. He's ruining our shot. How dare he get in there? All right, that's going to be it for content-aware fill. I love this tool. I'm going to retouching and kind of removing things. It's a really easy way to get rid of the kind of first bulk stuff. You might have a great image, except for that one thing that got in the shot. Might be something that you left there or rubbish on the ground. Content-aware fill is a nice, quick, and easy way to retouch. All right, I will see you in the next retouching video. Hi there, this video is just a little tip to do before you go off and start retouching, and like in the last video, use content-aware fill to remove things. A client of mine sent me this and they said, hey, can you show us how to remove it? And I said, yeah, it's super easy. You grab the rectangle tool and you drag across it, and you go to edit, fill, and this one's gonna do a particularly good job. It's gonna be fine-ish. Okay, in that case, it wasn't the best. It's okay. I could go into a different selection and try and fix it up, but there's just gonna be times where you're like, actually, this looks like a stock library image, and I've got some text burned onto it, or in that case, a logo. What you can do, right, is you can take that image. I've got it here in my 09 retouching. Here it is, example, spelled badly. It's Xmaple. And I've got Google Images open. So in Google Images, I can click this. So it's images.google.com. And I can go to search by image. I can say I would like to upload an image, please. I'm going to choose the file. I'm going to say Xmaple. I can click OK. And Google Images is amazing. It's going to go off and try and find images that kind of look like that one. And because it looks clearly like a stock library image, it's come up with images, and you can see it's actually been used on quite a few different websites. What we're going to do is going to click on this find other sizes, and basically you can see there, like I was just like, here you go, there's that image. They had the rights to use this image, they paid for it, they just somewhere through the process had lost the version that didn't have the graphic on it. So now what they can do is one of two things. They can download this particular one. Okay, this is a nice big quality one, it's 300 pixels wide, it's the largest one there. What I tend to do is hover above them and just see this URL here. Often, eventually, you'll find it's been used on so many sites. I'm trying to find like a stock library image site. Okay, something like stock.adobe.com or Envato Elements, Shutterstock. What else is there? iStock. Okay, I'm just looking for all these stock library images where I can go and buy it. Okay, they've probably got a really big version on there. Or I'm going to grab this one. And once it fully loads, I can right click it and I can save image as. Now again, we had the rights to use this image. So, well, basically I'm not a lawyer, but you get the idea, right? It's a great way of finding images without the junk on it or manipulations, or say it's just a really small image. Okay, and you know you've got the big one somewhere, but you can't find it. Dump it into Google Images and go find it somewhere else. Try and track it back to its source, the photographer or the stock library site that first sold it, and buy it from there. All right, just a little tip. Let's get on to some more retouching. Hi there, in this video we are going to remove that scary red eye that appears in some photographs, easy and quickly in Photoshop. Let's jump in. All right, let's open up two files. Let's go to File, Open, and in your 09 retouching folder, there is two in there called Red Eye 1 and 2. Let's be on Red Eye 1, and the tool we're looking for is, it'll be hiding under your spot healing brush. So it looks like a little band-aid. Click and hold that down, and it's this last option here called the Red Eye tool. And all you do is click right in the middle of the red eye, magic, gets rid of red eye. Now there are adjustments up here in terms of pupil size and darken amount. I never have that trouble, it just works every time. But you might have a special image that needs some adjustment. I want you to, on your own, do Red Eye 2. Just click on the dots in the middle. All right, it's a simple tool. Let's get on to the next retouching video. Hi there, you're back. It is time to do some retouching skin. You can see this gentleman here. We kind of remove some of the spots and marks. We're going to jump to this other example where we use the exact same tool for kind of tidying up maybe older photographs. We're going to use the spot healing brush, and basically it's really useful for removing any small parts of a large image, much the same way we did with content-aware fill earlier on, but this time it's a paintbrush, great for small details. Let's jump in now. Let's open up our file. Let's go to File, Open, and in your 09 retouching file, we're going to open up spot healing 1 and 2. Click Open. So we're going to start with doing kind of more traditional retouching with skin, and then look at how we can use it for really kind of anything that you want to remove. As long as it's small parts of a large object, this tool works really good. And the tool in question is this one here. It's called the spot healing brush. Okay, looks like a little band-aid. If you've been following along, yours is probably still set to red eye from the last tutorial. Click hold down and grab this top one here, spot healing brush. Make sure it's set to content aware. It probably is. If yours doesn't say content aware, there's no option up there. It's probably just a really early version of Photoshop you're using. Unfortunately, it's not going to work. It's going to work okay, but not as well. We need a brush size and hardness. Let's go for the hardness down to 0, so it's nice and fluffy. And in this particular video, probably about 50. Yeah, about 50. I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and all we do is let's find this little mark here, click hold and paint over it with black, let go of your mouse, and then magic happens. Cool, huh? It's such an easy tool to use. Okay, click and hold, drag. This one here just needs to click once over the top of it, let go. It's pretty magic. This little mark blemish up here, gone. And that, my friends, is the spot healing brush. Now let's take it a little bit more advanced, just a little weensy bit. Let's jump to spot healing brush 2. Okay, and yours is not going to have resample layers checked on. I left mine on from when I was playing, because this image right here, we've kind of changed forever, right? We didn't use any sort of smart object or anything fancy, and it's kind of gone forever, those little marks. So what we're going to do before we get started with the spot healing brush is we're going to do a little trick. So over here in your layers panel, we're going to click on this new layer here. We're going to double click the word layer 1. We're going to call it retouch. With this layer selected and this thing here that says sample all layers, it does a clever thing where it reaches through to the layer underneath, but paints onto the layer that we have selected. What I mean by this is, let's say we're going to move some of these dust and scratches. We could be at this forever for this one. It's quite wrecked, this image. Watch this. If I click and drag across this image, see it cleaned it up. I'm going to click across there. Lots of clicking I'm going to be doing for this video, this image. can drag across these little guys. I might use a bigger brush. Okay, so we're going to work our way around this image forever. Tidy it up. But the cool thing about it, though, is that say we get to a point where we're like, maybe I've gone a bit too far. You do end up in kind of retouching land and just keep going until this thing looks absolutely fake. And what you can do, though, is you can, because it's on its own layer, let's turn off the eyeball in the background layer to see what you can see. It's just stuff that's stuck over the top on this retouch layer. So it means that with the retouch layer selected, I can lower the opacity. Okay, and bring back some of that realness that was originally there. And it works really good when we've got this particular image. I'm going to redo things in super fast editing mode. See you in a sec. All right, and we're back. So basically I just kind of kept retouching, and it's kind of funny when you're retouching, like, okay, just get rid of this kind of like main. Hi there, you're back. It is time to do some retouching of skin. You can see this. So over here in your layers panel, we're going to image. See, go way around this image. Off the all right, and we're back. So basically I just kind of kept retouching, and it's kind of funny when you're retouching, like, okay, just get rid of this kind of like main stuff, and then you're like, oh, there's another level of main stuff, and then you get rid of that, and you're like, oh, just get rid of this last chunk. And before you realize it, you kind of removed any personality off the image, and also you end up kind of looking like this person looks kind of plastic. You can start to see, especially some of the stuff I did over the nose to remove some of the dark pores. It's starting to look a little weird. So in this case, exactly like we did in the last one, it's on its own layer, okay, which is quite cool. But it means that, let's say that it's, I want to kind of lower my work a little bit. So with this layer selected, the opacity, just drag it back a little bit. Can you see? Doesn't have to be all the way back, just enough to kind of maybe bring back some of that realism. All right, that is going to be it for the spot healing brush. This is the workhorse for retouching, especially for kind of skin and blemishes, spot acne. I kind of remove a few of these straight hairs as well. All right, let's jump into the next video. All right, it is assignment time. Okay, using the techniques we learned in the previous video, I want you to open up from your 09 retouching folder, one called Spot Healing 3, 4, and 5. Thank you, Brian, Fernando, and Genevieve. With Genevieve's image, I want you to see if you can remove the footsteps here. With Brian Beckwith, I want you to do a skin retouch. Okay, so just move some of the blemishes. And on Fernando Rise, I want you to see if you can completely remove this person out of this image. Now remember, you should be doing it on its own layer, using the Spot Healing brush, and make sure you use sample all layers. When you're finished, share your handiwork. All right, so once you're finished doing that, I will see you in the next video. Not before, do the assignments. I have my stern teacher face on. All right, let's keep going. Hi there, in this video we are going to do retouching of the eyes. I'm turning it on and off to see the before and after. We're just doing subtle adjustments. We can go the full Monty and kind of go full blown. I've been here in Photoshop retouching mode. We'll show you both. You'll also see we do more than just the eyes as well. We kind of go off on a bit of a tangent and show you how to use the exact same tools that we use for the eyes to work with, say, like the hair and the jawline. All right, let's jump into it now. Let's open up our image. Let's go to File, let's go to Open. And in your retouching file, we're going to use Eyes 01. First thing to do is we need to duplicate this layer because we want to be able to go back to it later on and see what the original looked like. So right click it, say duplicate layer, I'm going to call this one retouch. Now we do the whites of the eyes first, and we use it. I'm zooming a little bit. We're going to use the dodge tool. So the dodge tool, depending on what last tool you use, is in this little group here. It's this little paddle thing here. Okay, with it selected, up the top here, we used this a little earlier when we did our paint drips. Okay, and midtones work great then in this case, because we're working on the whites of the eyes or the highlights in the eyes. We want to be on highlights. Now exposure, we're going to have it 50. Yours is probably set like that by default. Brush size, something appropriate in the eye here. I've got 70, and I've made sure my brush hardness is down to 0. Now, the protect tones is optional. It works fine with it on in this case, but if you're working, you're finding it's making the eyes kind of really grey, you might try turning that off. And all you need to do, make sure we're on a retouch layer, and click, hold, and kind of drag over a little bit. Now, I've kept mine quite high at 50, so that you can kind of see what I'm doing. I'm just kind of little bits. Now, that is way too high. What I mean by that is just kind of coming on real strong. I leave it at 50 just so that you can see what I'm doing. When I'm actually doing it, I'm undoing, stepping backwards, stepping backwards. Okay, I'll often be at something like 20% and build it up slowly. But it's a little hard to see when you're kind of just working it up slowly. So maybe a slightly smaller brush, 60. Clicking, dragging, clicking. I want the whites of the eyes. I want the reflections on the eyes to be a bit brighter as well. And don't worry if you go a bit too far. I think I've gone a little bit too far there. A little bit too far there. Crank that up. Because what we'll do is, let's zoom back a little bit, is because it's on its own layer, at the end when we finish this, we're going to turn down the opacity. Watch this, I turn it right down. You just find this kind of happy medium of like believability versus overcooked Photoshopness. So it's okay to be a little bit overcooked because you can just lower this opacity, showing the layer underneath. I'm going to zoom out. I'm going to tap the eyeball on, eyeball off. So that's kind of how to fix the whites of the eyes. I feel like I've gone a little bit too far over here. So that's the dodge tool. Okay, lightens things up. I'm going to have the opacity back at 100% for the moment. And let's grab the burn tool, which darkens things. We've used it for shadows in the past. It's really handy for a couple of things when you're retouching. One is fix up eyebrows. It's not fixing them up. I'm just kind of like giving them an extra bit of fullness. You can also use it to kind of enhance cheekbones. So I've got mine on midtones. I've got the exposure up probably too high because I'm going to turn it down to like 20%. You can see up there. And I'm just going to kind of tweak in here. Not too much, just to enhance the kind of jawline. On, off. It's not particularly subtle, but you get what I mean, right? So dodging kind of lifts the eyes, and the burn tool kind of helps you fill in a bit of the moodiness. We'll lower down the overall opacity at the end. One last thing I'll do when I'm doing this type of thing is to play with the saturation. And it's a mixture of desaturating and saturating. What I mean by that is this thing here called the sponge tool. So we've used dodge, burn, we use the sponge tool. And by default, I think it's set to desaturate. And that can be really handy. I'm going to go down here. It's probably set a little high at 50%, but I guess I just want to show you how it's working. There's some colors kind of yellow. I can double click that a couple of times. It's a little hard to see, okay? But it just kind of removes some of that kind of yellowiness that can come through on the eye. So that's desaturation. What I use a lot more of is the saturation. Okay, and I'm going to pick a slightly big brush size, and I'm going to saturate the eyes just a little bit. I'm just clicking once or twice, 1, 2, 3, 4 times even. Okay, so there's just a little bit more of the exact same color in there, just a little bit more of it. Same with the hair. I'm going to pick a nice big paintbrush, way bigger, using my square brackets. Okay, I'm just going to click, hold, and drag across the hair a little bit. It's hard to know how much it's doing. A bit smaller for across here, a bit bigger in here. So gone too far. That's okay. because we're going to lower the opacity, but can you see what I mean by the head is getting a little bit richer? And I'm also going, like, I guess 50% over because I know I'm going to tone down the opacity. Just said 1,000 times already, but I don't want you judging my retouching. Not yet anyway. Okay, now I'm going to lower this opacity and just kind of find a happy blend between 0 and 100. 100 too much, 0 nothing, and just find this kind of realistic but happy medium. Mine feels about 40%. It really depends on what you're going for. If you're going full glam, then you might crank it up to like 200%. Start using the burn tool to put in mascara, really enhance that jawline. But I guess I'm trying to go for believability. It's hard when you're a retoucher because for you to do your job really well, people need to not know that you had anything to do with it. Like there's no job recognition. You're meant to, if people think, oh great, it's been photoshopped, you've done a bad job. All right, so we use the dodge tool to lighten parts, we use the burn tool to darken parts, and we use the sponge tool to both desaturate the eyes and saturate the things we want colored. You could do the same for the lips. You could desaturate that background there to kind of enhance the model, to bring the model forward. What I want you to do is to practice your skills. So go to File, Open, okay, and there's one here called Eyes 02. I want you to do the same thing here, dodging, burning, and using the sponge tool. But don't forget, before you get started, is duplicating that layer so that you can turn it back later on. Here might also be a good time to just touch up. There's a couple of spots on the skin using the spot healing brush that we learned earlier on. All right, let's get into the next video where we look at teeth in particular. If you are working on this one, you start working on the teeth and it does something weird, goes gray or yellow, I'm going to show you some tricks for that in the next video. See you over there. Hi there, this video is all about tidying up teeth. There's nothing wrong with these teeth, but we're just going to enhance them a little bit like that. So off, on, trying to do it subtly-ish. Let's look at how to do that now. All right, to get started, go to your 09 folder, and then there's one called Teeth01 from freestocks.org. Thanks, Freestocks. Like we did in the last tutorial, we need to duplicate this layer, okay, just so that we can turn back any work that we've done, just lower the opacity of it a little bit. I call this one retouch. On this retouch layer, if you've worked on it before, I'm going to zoom in on my teeth here. If you've done it before and you just use straight to the dodge tool, you'll probably find protect tones on, and it does this, kind of goes this weird red color. Not good. So I'm going to undo. Before you go into the dodge tool, what you want to do is you want to use the desaturation tool. So sponge tool, set to desaturate. You desaturate them first, then you dodge them. Now the flow in this case, 50% is going to be nice. Brush size, something that fits in here. I'm going to zoom in. What am I at? I'm at a brush size of 50. Click hole, and we're trying to make the teeth grey. If you're like, oh, they're going grey. That's what we want to do. We want to get them grey, to pull the color out of them, and then we'll dodge them. They won't go that kind of sparkly red and yellow color. Cool. What you don't want to do is, like, if you can see gums, I can't in this one, but if you see gums, don't make those grey. The person starts looking a little bit sick if you make their gums go grey because everybody's gums are pink. Okay, so grey teeth to start with, then click hold down the sponge tool and grab the dodge tool. Okay, remember the dodge tool makes things lighter. For this to work, you need to work on highlights and the exposure. I'm going to lower it down to something like 20%. Now over here it says protect tones. Let's turn that off. Protect tones just try and looks after skin tones, which are in that kind of yellowy zone. That's actually what we don't want to protect. We want to get rid of that kind of skin tan, yellowy teeth color. So I got it quite low, so watch this. I'm going to click once. Now my brush size here is kind of filling like the gap here. I find with a bigger brush, it's less obvious that you've been in there. So I'm going to click a couple times. Now, because you're new, you're going to click away at this until I go absolutely crazy white. Okay, and that's fine. You'll get the hang of it after a little while. You can see I know I've probably gone a little too far now. We can turn it down a little bit later on. So if you feel like you've gone too far, stop there. Now these ones in the background shouldn't be white. Like that's just light. It's just dark back there. So they don't have to be perfectly white. You can lighten them up a little bit. So I'm just kind of clicking, maybe a bigger brush. I'm going to go into the gap here. Now don't worry if yours has gone way overboard. That happens every single time I teach this class. We're just going to get them like that. Now I've gone overboard as well. But what we can do now is on this retouch layer, we can lower down the opacity, completely off, completely back on, too wide, and just kind of find that where you feel it looks naturally okay. So on this layer here, I feel like 80% is kind of there. Zooming out a little bit, maybe a little bit lower. Go. So remember when you're working on teeth, lower the saturation first using the sponge tool, set to desaturate, then go in with your dodge tool. Make sure when you're using the dodge tool though to untick protect tones. Knowing that, I'd like you to open up the second example. It's in your exercise files, 09 retouch. It's called Teeth 02. Thank you, Roxalana. Let's click open. Now this one here is, I guess, not as clear for the teeth. Okay, but that's cool. We want different examples. So make sure you duplicate the layer, desaturate the teeth first, then look at dodging it, and then look potentially at lowering it down using the opacity on that retouch layer. Once you've done that as well, to practice your other skills, do the same thing with the eyes with the dodge tool, and then maybe use the sponge tool to enhance the saturation or the colors of the eyes and the hair. You might even look to do levels for this particular image just to kind of bring out the strong blacks if you don't like this kind of like this flat back kind of Instagram style. It's up to you. When you're finished, I'd love you to share what you've done. So save it here as a project, stick it in the comments, or send it to me on social media. Instagram's the best place. I am bring your own laptop. All right, next video. Hi there, in this video we're going to dive into blending modes a little bit more. Basically it's how a layer interacts with the background. This particular use case is really great when you've got an image, like this hand drawing I've done, or this logo, and it's kind of stuck to the white background. Watch this really city, just magically disappears the background. It takes one click to do it. Same thing when we've got that same logo, it was black, now it's white on a dark background. They're called blending modes, they can really save you some time. Let's get into them now. All right, to get started, let's go to File, let's go to Open. We're in a new folder now called 10 blending modes. Open up blending 1, 2, 3, and 4. We're going to start with 1 and 2. So we've looked at blending modes before in this course, and we just kind of ignored them really. I just told you to do them, and they did some magic. Now it's time to understand them a little bit more, and one of the kind of main uses for it, when you want to remove the white background of something. So in this case, I've got this logo here. It is not on its own layer. It is smushed into the white background here, and I want to remove the white. So what I do is with my Move tool selected, click, hold, drag, 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 onto blending mode 1, let go. Now, before we move on, this works amazingly for black onto a light background. If you need it to be white on a dark background, we'll do it in a sec. It's not as good, just so you know. But in this case, it's pretty magic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get it down here, and resize it a little bit so it fits. But before I do that, I'm going to convert it into a smart object, because that's what we're doing, right? We're doing anything pro now. Convert to smart object. Now I'm going to shrink it down so that quality is still there. Hit return. So I've got the logo, but it's got this dreaded white border around it. All we're going to do is with this top layer selected, I'm going to change it from normal, and this one here is going to be the magic one, multiply. Cool. Now we did it with a logo. Let's say we've done it with this hand drawing. We're looking at blending 04. So I'm going to click, hold, drag, drag, drag with my Move tool. Drag, 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 let go. Same thing. It's a bit big. I do this in my notebook. I've scanned it in, and I want to see if I can lay it out, but it has the white background. So instead of doing a mask, which can be tough, we're going to convert it to a smart object, which is not particularly necessary, other than we want to keep all that good quality in there. Okay, and I'm going to drag it, and because it needs to go onto a white background, it's going to work perfect. Well, I've made a lightish background so you can see it a little nicer. So you can kind of see it through. So I've got my little drawing here, and I'm going to change that from normal to multiply. Cool. So dark on light is perfect. You can move it around, okay, and you can see it. And there's lots of things you can't do to it. It's quite a really specific use. You need to just chop out the white background. If I'm going to try and color this with, say, a color overlay, it's just not going to work. Watch. So if you want to get into kind of recoloring it, you're going to have to look at masking out the black, or maybe vectorizing it in something like Illustrator. There's something called Live Trace, which can really save the day. But if you've got a logo and you've copied it off somebody's website and you need to use it and you need to chop out the white background, good to go. Now there is a case where you want it on a dark background. Okay, so the black's not going to work. So I'm going to do the same thing. Blending 02, grab them, drag them, drag them. Okay, we've got them here. Convert them to a smart object. I'm skipping that step because I'm going fast. Okay, and you'll notice that multiply works, but just not the way I want it. I want it to be white. What you're going to do is you're going to work your way through these blending modes, and you'll eventually get to, where is he? Divide. Okay, and it's going to kind of work. It's working good because it's kind of monochromatic in the background. There's no real color going on. Watch what happens when it goes over color. So really, that's a kind of a small use case where it's monochromatic in the background. You need it to be white. I show you this because surprisingly enough, I use it enough when I'm doing kind of design work and you just can't find the logo of someone. Now, if you are doing this type of layout in something like InDesign or Illustrator instead of Photoshop, you will be able to find blending modes in all of those programs as well. You can check out my courses on both those bits of software. I cover it in those two. All right, so getting into blending modes, we've covered it a little bit. This one particular cool little usage, great when you've got a logo or a drawing and you need to remove the background. All right, next video. Hi there, this video is about blending modes and using it to make these kind of colored box accents. See the logo down the bottom there and this big kind of, I'm going to say fuchsia box at the top there. Super easy to do. Let's learn how to do it now in Adobe Photoshop. First up, let's open the image we're going to work with. You can use any JPEG. If you want to follow exactly, we'll use 10 blending modes and go to color accent.psd. Now this is something we worked on earlier. If you can't remember or you didn't do that earlier tutorial, there's 3 layers. I'm going to turn the top 2 off, so it's just the background. And what we did is we copied the model out onto our own layer, which is at the top there. And in between, we put this text. So that when they're all piled on top of each other, we've got this cool layered effect. But you can do this just with a plain old JPEG. You just won't get to tuck it behind the model. So first up, let's grab the rectangle tool. Okay, you might have had something else selected. Let's grab the rectangle tool. Up here where it says stroke, I'm going to have a no stroke. And where it says fill, I'm going to pick a color. I'm going to use this little hue slider. The swatches are cool, but I'm going to use the hue slider and just pick something like what I actually want is, you can see I just use the eyedropper tool. If you've got this hue picker open, you can just click in here. I want kind of like dark green, so I want to maybe darken it down a little bit. Once you've found the color, click OK. Now what we're going to do is click hold and drag out a rectangle. I kind of wanted it something like that, right? And let's fancy it up a little bit. If yours is locked like this, I'm going to break the link and then click hold and drag that to the right. You can see over there. We're going to get one rounded corner. All right, and the magic really happens is with this layer selected, like in the last one, okay, we're going to look at these different options. Now, in our case, dissolve never seems to do anything, but let's start with darken, nothing. Multiply, pretty good. And you just got to kind of work your way through this list until you find something you like. Now, because we're working with color modes for the next little bit, or blending color modes, this clicking will drive you mad, okay? So there is a shortcut. It's pretty advanced, okay, but it might be worth it. You might be going, man, this is going to kill me. So if that is you, what you need to do is first, you need to be on the move tool for some reason, I'm not sure why. Then hold down the shift key on your keyboard, and then tap the plus key. It has to be the one up at the top, okay, right next to all your numbers above all your keys. For some reason, that's the shortcut. It's a weird one, okay? And you can see, by tapping that, I'm just toggling all the way through it. It's the same for Mac and a PC. I'm just trying to find the one that works. That's kind of cool, like, I like that kind of effect. Color burn. It's kind of this overexposed, grainy, noir kind of thing. That's what's going to work for me. Now, the rest of it is just picking different colors. I'm going to add some text like I saw at the beginning, so you can skip on. Otherwise, follow me, and yeah, we'll do a little bit more. So rectangle tool again, I'm going to pick a different fill color. I'm going to go in here and pick a, what kind of a ready, I want to say fuchsia. I'm not even sure what to call this color. I should know. Redesign it again. That works for me. Don't have that layer selected, otherwise it changes that one. I'll leave that in there in case you make that same mistake. So I'm going to go to edit, undo. Edit. Can't do anything. Go back to my move tool. It was halfway through picking a color with that little box up. So now I can go edit. Step backwards. I'll leave all that in there. It's good stuff. So instead of changing that color, what we're going to do is you can click on any of these other layers and it will work fine, or have nothing selected. So this kind of gray area down the bottom, that means I don't want any layer selected. Now if I go to my rectangle tool and click up here, it's not going to change that layer. Back to my fuchsia. You're allowed to correct me if I'm wrong. Pinky red. Nuclear red. Anyway, so I've got my rectangle tool, got no stroke. I'm just drawing that big box off the page and down to the floor line. Just kind of cool. Now I'm going to use my shortcut, remember, onto the move tool, and then hold down shift and tap plus. If you tap minus, it goes backwards. Even that's just cool like that. We're going to do duotones in an upcoming video, and it's going to use a similar sort of effect like this. But first thing I want to do is I want to drag this rectangle to be just behind the text here. So that there's this kind of like little interactionness going. What's that one? Linear band looks kind of cool. Really depends on what you're looking for here. We're using blending modes now just for, I don't know, visual effects, not anything super serious, but it's super easy to do and quite fun. That's going to work for me. I'm using multiply. This one down here is using color burn. Now I'm just going to add some text. I'm going to grab my title. And remember from our title exercise, don't click inside this box because it will try and turn that box into a text box. That's not what I want to do. So undo typing, go away. Oh, undo typing. Escape key is the I didn't mean it key. Then you can go to edit, step backwards, and it should do that whole chunk undone. So when you are drawing in a text box, remember the square box around the outside is good. If I try and do it inside this rectangle here or along the side here, I can get into trouble by linking the two together. So I'm just going to drag my text box kind of out over here. I'm going to go to type, and I'm going to, before you go and fill with Lorem Ipsum, you can pick a font size that's more appropriate. Font size, mine's at 10 point. Am I letting, let's set it to auto, so that when I go to type and say paste Lorem Ipsum, just place all the text, it's not going to paste like giant text that we might have done in the last tutorial. Cool, so that's going to be my bit of text. I'm going to grab my type tool. Again, you can skip on now, I'm just set about making it look cool. Mainly looking cool for the intro, so that it sucks you in and makes you want to do this one when really we just changed the blending mode on a colored box. I tricked you in here. Bring the logo as well. Let's go to File, Open. There's a logo in that same 10 blending modes. Okay, logo.ai. I'm going to click OK. Click it all, copy, in here, paste. Convert it to a smart object because we're super serious about this Photoshop stuff. And shrinking it down, moving it to where I want it to be. Maybe a bit bigger. Turn. All right, that is going to be it. I'm liking this rectangle less as a color burn. What you might notice is that layer there is actually underneath all of this. So I'm going to bring it to the top. It's not making much of a difference now, but it might do if we change the blending mode of this green rectangle. And I'm just going to go to multiply. Everyone uses multiply. Actually, I don't like multiply now. Man, you should seriously skip on. I'm over with that. Settled on linear light. All right, friends, that is how to use blending modes to do kind of color accents in Adobe Photoshop. See you in the next video. First up, let's open up the files that we're going to be using. Let's go to File, let's go to Open, and in your exercise files, under 10 blending modes, we're going to open up all these ones that say Bottle Island. Okay, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. The fourth one's by Tim Marshall. Thanks, Tim. All right, so we're going to start with this glass bottle here, and we're going to put in O2, so we're going to grab this island and stick it in. So we're going to use the quick selection tool. Turn to the brush, something about 50. 50 is always a good number. Click, hold, and drag across our island. It's up to you whether you want the sand or not. And in terms of how hardcore we're going with this, we're not going very hardcore at all. Okay, so all these selections around here, we could use a select and mask, but in this particular case, like the first one, the thing you saw at the beginning there, it's quite forgiving with layer masks. So we could double back and fix up the layer if you find we go a little too fast here. But yeah, I'm going to grab sand just because. I get a really small paintbrush and go into these corners. I'll get the editor to speed this bit up. All right, so I got my selection. If I wanted to do better, what I could do is I could go to my layer mask button here, okay, and then go to select and mask and try and work it out a bit better. But it looks pretty good, and because it's the blue showing through the trees, it's going to look fine because we've got a blue sky to go behind it anyway. So with our move tool, click, hold, drag to bottle 01 and down here. It's the wrong size, so to be fancy, we're going to right-click layer 1 and say you need to be a smart object, and then I'm going to use my transform tool. I'm using Command T or Control T on a PC. Okay, I'm going to get it so it fits in here. Then, all right, so that's my island. Next bit is the sky. So I'm just going to close down island 2, not save it, just to make things tidier on the top here. So we're going to use bottle island 3. We used this image earlier on in a different project. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab the move tool, click, hold, drag to the first tab, holding down, let go. I'm going to kind of drag it up and have it just behind the island there. Now what you'll notice is I'm missing a chunk here, it's just not quite big enough. I could just transform it. I'm pretty sure nobody would know that I stretched a little bit, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you, we're going to double back on some of the skills we've learned so far, just to compound those. So I want a bit more sky. So remember, you can use the crop tool. It's quite a cool way of doing that. So the crop tool, make sure that along here, content aware is turned on. And I'm just going to drag a little bit that way and a little bit that way, and then hit return, and hope Photoshop doesn't make a mess of the sky. It's pretty good with clouds-ish. It's pretty good. I think that's pretty awesome. Nice work, Photoshop. It's kind of weird down here. I'm happy with it. So back to my move tool, click, hold, drag, back into here. What I might do is that first layer here, I'm going to just click on the trash can. So this guy now is in the reasonable right place. I'm just using my arrow keys just to tip it around. So now what I need to do is mask it inside the bottle. Like I do lots of things, we need to mask all sorts of stuff inside the bottle. So what we're going to do is create a selection and reuse it a few times. So it's a bit of a new skill. So first up, beyond the background layer, let's grab our quick selection tool. I'm going to turn auto enhance off, only because I need to be really rough in this case and it slows down my computer while I'm recording. Brush size, I'm going to increase up. I'm using my square brackets next to my P key. Okay, and I'm grabbing everything. I don't want the lid, so I'm going to get close to the lid. Because I want the lid to shine through, right? I just want to select the glass parts of this bottle. Cool, trying to get it all. It's hard to know sometimes if you've got it all. A nice little trick is you can just click on this gently. I say gently, just so this little icon here is called the quick mask. We're not going to use quick mask. It's just an older technique for doing masking, but what's really cool is it's quite obvious where I haven't selected. Don't double click it fast, it loads up the settings. So just toggle it once, gentle. Okay, just a nice way of going, I've missed you. Toggle it once again, on, off, and I can see 2 more parts. All right, that's good enough for me. If you see some bits that are missing, you could spend a lot more time here. You should. So I've got the bottle selected, but I want to use this a couple of times because we're going to use this to trim the sky, but we're also going to use it to trim the water. So there's a cool little option here. It says select, save selection. I'm going to give this a name. I'm going to call this my bottle selection. It just means later on, when I need it, I can go back to select and say, actually, load that selection I made earlier. So I've got it up once. I'm going to click on my sky layer. I'm going to actually start naming layers in here to help you guys. Well, just to make it easier to follow. So this is the sky, and this is the island, and the background is going to be named bottle. Awesome. So sky layer selected, got my selection, and click on layer mask. You can see it's a bit rough along the top there. I'm not worried because we're going to use our blending modes. Now with blending modes, we've got 2 things over here. We've got the mask, okay, and we've got the actual image itself. So blending mode on this is different from a blending mode on my actual image, and that's what I want. I want my sky selected because that's what I want to blend underneath with my bottle. I'm just going to kind of work our way through, and dissolve never works. Darken's pretty cool. You can start to see that kind of nice interaction with glass. Blending modes are perfect for glass. Anything that's transparent. Okay, you just kind of work your way through until you're quite like that linear burn. I'm just toggling down now. If you've forgotten the shortcut, you probably have because it's a tough one. If you're sick of doing this, clickety click. Okay, so what you can do is click on one of them, make sure you're on your move tool, hold down your shift key on your keyboard, and then tap the plus key on your keyboard. You can see it just keeps toggling through. I'm going to use linear burn because I like it and I practiced already. I've got it written right here. Use linear burn. That will depend on your sky and the bottle. Next bit is the water. The water's going to close down my clouds. Bye bye. Don't save. And here, there's my water. I'm going to grab my rectangle marquee tool. I'm just going to grab, I don't want the whole thing. I just want a chunk of it. I don't want all this stuff at the top. I'm going to grab my move tool, drag it across, dump it in there, and it's not quite big enough. Now this is where I'm going to cheat. I should go and use the content aware cropping like we did with the sky, but this water is it's going to be so forgiving. Nobody's going to notice it went that big. I share that secret with you. You should probably go back and do it, but just a little bit of a transform that size, nobody's going to notice. Use my move tool to kind of drag. I like the bubbles, so I want to kind of get those bubbles in there. Now I want to use the same mask I did for the sky. This is where this awesome thing comes in. Select, load the selection. Which one? I want from, where's this channel? Say bottle selection. That's the one I want. Thank you very much. Now I can hit layer mask. Now I'm on my move tool and I'm playing with the blending modes. And yeah, just kind of toggling through to see which one I like. I know exactly which one I like because I've got it written down. I'm going to start with multiply. The thing is, it's going to be like the under island like you saw at the beginning there, so I might have to change this as we go along. Multiply looks average now, but I feel like it looks better later on when we get our under island bit in. But no, if you pick different water, it's going to be a different blending mode. Okay, so we've done him. Thank you very much. And the last one, island 5, I just went through stock library sites and tried to find something that looked like the underneath of an island. Looks pretty good. Well, I've tested it and it works pretty well. So I'm using my quick selection tool. I'm being really rough with this because who knows what this, like, it doesn't have to be perfect. Going into water. Yeah, looks good to me. I love it because it's got this kind of like discolored bit where it's against the waterline. That's going to look cool. Okay, so same thing, make a selection, layer mask, grab my move tool, drag it in over here, drag it in over here. I'm going to have to scale it. So before I scale it, I'm going to right click it and say, you are a smart object, my friend. And I'm going to double click him and I'm going to call him lower island. I'm not sure what to call that. So you can give this guy the name of water. So lower island, let's rotate you and scale you. So I'm using Command T on Mac, Control T on PC. And you can see I'm holding shift while I'm dragging the edges here. Okay, fire out as rotation and click on this dot here to get transform. So a bit further out rotation, right on the dots, transform. You already need that. Cool. Awesome. Then it comes down to the blending mode again. So back to my move tool and just cycle through until you find something you like. Ooh, that's cool. That's not even what I had in my little list here. Stuff like that's gonna work. Okay, so we could be there. I'm gonna share with you one more little trick. I find that when you're dealing with glass, you can often get like the darks and shadows working well with the blending mode, or you can get the kind of highlights from the glass working well, but never on the same blending mode. So what I find cool is this last layer here. We're gonna right click it and duplicate it. Okay, this is going to be bottle highlights. And all I'm going to do is drag it to the top. I'm going to move this up so you can see my layers. So I've got the bottle at the bottom. He's kind of filling in the back there. And I've got this guy I'm adding to the top. And what happens is I can use the blending mode on this, okay, to try and find something that's going to help with the highlights. Okay, so I think let's turn it off and on. I'm on darken, so it's not doing anything, right? Another multiply is not what I want. I want to find something that's going to help me with the lights. Is that doing nothing? Let's find one. Too much. Ooh, it's kind of cool. Overlay. Probably a little bit. I might use overlay and just lower down the opacity. Soft light, similar, but don't have to lower the opacity down. You can see it's changed the water quite a bit. You can cycle through. I know that soft light works for me in this case. Okay, brings just some of the highlights back in the glass here. Now it's looking good. I should have spent a little bit more time on my mask when I said, don't worry about it. I lied. There's quite a clear contrast between these two. Now that could be it for us. If you're happy with that, okay, we've done it's reasonably complex. We've thrown in a few of the tricks we've learned throughout this course. Got masking, we learned how to save a selection, using blending modes, which we're using more and more, right? Let's do kind of two last little things that you might use to tidy it up that I really want to do. I hope it doesn't get too advanced. Next one is we've got this kind of bottles highlight layer, and it's doing some cool stuff, but it doesn't just have to be one on the top and one on the bottom. Often, depending on the image, I'll make a couple on the top here and mix blending modes. There's no absolute rule of how many you should have and what they should be, but I'm going to duplicate this one, and we're going to put in the darker tones again, which I'll call the shadows. Okay, and at the top here, I'm going to cycle back through it again, just to find something that has fills. I feel like that soft light kind of lightened it up too much. That back over the top again, I think gives it a bit more fullness. So you can kind of see, that's how we had it when we started. And it looks quite obvious now, it's quite weak with the shadow highlights. I did this one here as a soft light, and kind of filled it out a little bit too much. Then I put another one on top that's back to being, it's this multiply. And it just kind of fills it in again. I don't know, it gives it a little bit more substance, and the edges a bit more substance, and hides some of my bad selections. And the last little touch-ups are going to be the dodge and burn tool. I'm pretty much just going to use the burn tool to darken edges. So with the burn tool, I'm going to work on the sky first. Just got the sky layer selected. If you converted it to a smart object, like I said, because that's really good, you need to right-click it and say rasterize layer. Okay, but our sky doesn't have a smart object. I'm going to grab my burn tool. Okay, it's this guy here under dodge, grab burn. Now up here, I'm going to make sure it's on highlights because I want to try and darken the highlights, which is this guy here. Exposure is probably a little high on 100%, but it'll give you an example of what I want to do. You probably do yours and build yours up a little slower in terms of the brush size, but a really big brush. 800. I'm just making sure it's got a nice fluffy edge by the hardness down at 0. Okay, I'm just trying to do that, trying to darken those edges so it's not so crisp on the edge. Same with the water, I'm going to darken the edges up. Now because these aren't particularly highlights, I'm going to try the midtones or shadows to darken the edges. And midtones work. I want the depths to be a little darker down the bottom here as well. Looks quite cool. I like it anyway. All right, that is going to be it. Probably needs a lens flare. You're more than welcome to add a lens flare to your version. What we'll do in the next video, though, is we'll set up proper class exercise. So work your way through this one. Actually, last thing before I go. The island here is really sharp, and that's fine. Okay, but with the island layer selected, I'm going to play with the blending mode of this as well. Just to, I don't know, I feel like it needs to be blending with the background a little better. So, yeah, last little bit. Or maybe super high contrast like linear light. I like that. Multiply, it will depend on your island and how good your selections are, but I think that looks kind of cool. Before, after. It's so subjective. But yeah, that is going to be the end of putting an island in a bottle. Really love making this course. It's not often I get to put stuff in a bottle. All right, I'll see you in the next video. Hi there, it is class project time. Now, using the skills we learned in the last video where we put the island in a bottle, you're going to put a boat in a bottle, or anything in a bottle, it's up to you. But I've given you some class files so you've got some stuff to work with. Okay, so in your exercise files, okay, under 10 blending modes, there's a folder called class project. So if you can find that, then pick one of the bottles. Okay, there's A, B, C, and D. Pick one of the two boats, do a selection, copy and paste them into the bottle, and then start working the same way we did before, where there is a sky, you're going to have to trim it up, you might have to extend it depending on your bottle. We've got the water, it's the same one as the last one. You can go off and find your own water if you like from something like Unsplash, and then run through the techniques we did in the last video. So there was a quick selection tool, then we saved that selection, so we could use it again later on. We made sure everything had layer masks, we had to do some rotation and scale. The main chunk of it is our blending modes, okay, where it starts interacting with glass, and you can tidy it up at the end with the dodge tool and the burn tool. Now, a couple of things you might want to do is that the selection for the boat, okay, this one here could be quite tricky because there's so many gaps in between. Remember the last thing I did in the last video where we had our island? Often you can just do a real quick mask, not worry about all the gaps, and then just use a blending mode to kind of smush it to the background, something like multiply. Or you might spend a bit longer and get in all these gaps and use the select and mask and try and tidy it up that way. One other thing you might do is when you open up one of these bottles, let's say it is this one here, and you want it the other way around, okay, so here you might go image rotation, and go clockwise first. That'll just get you started like this because I don't know why a boat in a bottle needs to go that way. You do it upside down, I don't mind. Once you do get it done, I'd love for you to share it. Share it with me on Instagram. I am Bring Your Own Laptop. Try and tag me in there, and also upload it here in either the comments or the assignments section. Also show some love for the other people that are uploading theirs as well. When people are new, it's lovely to get good feedback. Drop a few comments to other people's work as well. High fives all round. All right, lovely student, that is your homework. I will see you in the next video once you are done. Welcome to this video about duotone effects. Okay, it's really easy to do. It's a layer that goes over the top of any image, converts it into this cool 2-spot color look. You have to do the whole thing. You can do 50-50, you can move it around. It's loads of fun. It's easy to do. Let's get started. Let's open up the images, file open. And in your exercise files, there's a new folder called 11. Okay, I'm going to open up duotone 1 and 2. Now you can do this with any image, but it does come out nicer if there's a clear contrast between your subject matter and the background. So you might have to do some masking or some sort of way to kind of dull the background. Like this one here is being dodged in the background, so there's a really strong difference between the model here and the background. Anyway, it's really easy to do. With the layer selected, go to adjustments panel, and you're looking for this one here called gradient map. It's the last one on the last row. Give me a click, and instantly that's working. It's just the wrong colors is all. So click anywhere in this colored bar here, and you double click this house and this house to change the colors. You can start with one of the default ones up here. This one here is particularly good. It's almost kind of knocked out that Spotify look that they were doing for a long time. There's some terrible ones in here as well. But let's click on this first one, and I'm going to leave the purple because I like it, and I'm going to double click the orange and move to that more Spotify color-ish. Just drag the hue slider up and down to find where you want it to go. Maybe I want it to be in that kind of minty green. That's going to work for me. Now on this side here, I feel like it was a little bit more in the purples. Let's click OK. Let's click OK. Now if you're finding you've got the wrong colors, you can just come out of that color. So if you're like, oh, they're the wrong way around, you can click OK and just click reverse. I'm just going to switch those two colors out. Let's go a little bit further. So let's open up duotone 2. Thank you, Anthony. And the first one was Drewgram. But this one here, I'm going to do the exact same thing. So we're going to go down to adjustments and go here. Okay, pick our colors, click in here. It looks pretty cool already. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to use some more specific colors. I'm going to use, remember this familiar window extensions, Adobe Color Themes. If your internet's not super slow, this thing will load up. You want to click explore. And then I'm just going to work with the kind of most popular colors. And what I'm going to do, I like this one here, fine. Click on the dotted lines, and I'm going to say add 2 swatches. And it just means that now, close down the libraries if they open up, but if you go to window and go to swatches, you'll see this like little color box up here. I'm going to close that down. And now when I go into my gradient map, I can click on this White House. Okay, actually double click on the White House, and then I can just come up here and pick one of these colors. So those are the colors that came through from Adobe Color Themes. I'm liking that one. I'm going to look at this one. Now I'm just going to cycle through what I want it to be. I'm going to pick that one. Okay, so that's how to pick specific colors. A couple other things you can do to enhance your duotoneness, okay, is to grab this midpoint. And it just decides what becomes what color. So you might find that your image is, let's click on this guy. Okay, there's midpoint here. Just needs a bit of sliding left and right to get the right colors in the right place. Now what you would have noticed there is I got a little bit lost. If you click anywhere but there, it adds another swatch and you can go for a third color, go for a tricolor. Okay, it might be, so double click this one, I'm going to go and pick on there. Made mine horrible. You too can make yours horrible. If you want to get rid of colors, say you just got lost and you're like me, you clicked on it by accident, there's colors everywhere. Click, hold, and just drag them off into no man's land. So I'm clicking, holding, and dragging off, and they disappear. Let's go a little bit further. Let's click OK. Duotones can look quite cool if they're kind of like maybe half and half. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my rectangle tool and just draw a box kind of halfway down there. So it is the rectangle marquee tool. And what I'm going to do is you can see my gradient map over here. Okay, it's an adjustment layer, and by default it gets given a layer mask, but the layer mask isn't doing anything because it's completely white. So what we can do is we can right click it and say delete that layer mask, and just like we do for any other, remember we did selections in the last one with our boat and our island. Okay, with a selection here, with that layer selected, I can click layer mask, and I can do just half of it. So the black stuff gets hidden and the white stuff shows through. Cool. Doesn't have to be straight up and down. You can do a selection with say the polygonal lasso tool. So I'm going to undo. Okay, and I'm going to go from this one over to here. So I'm doing a really quick selection around kind of halfway through, then hit layer mask. You might do something more like that. I'm going to undo again. I've seen them quite cool where it's just like a kind of like, I don't know, a box. Let's do that. Okay. And the cool thing about it is because it's on its own layer, okay, with my move tool, I can just kind of move it around to kind of best, I don't know, get where I want it to be. Nowhere's good. I can transform it. So like I transform, I use Command T, Control T on a PC, and I go back to my 50/50. Hit return. I like that. All right, so that is our duotone effect. That's going to be us in this video. Let's get on to the next one where we set a couple of projects. All right, it is project time. It's a quick and easy one in your exercise files under 11 visual styles. Okay, I want you to work on duotone 3 and 4 and play around with the gradient map. Pick your own colors and then send them to me. I'd love to see what you made. All right, on to the next video. Hi there, it's this effect. It's actually called anaglyph. Nobody can remember, or at least I can't. I can never Google it. I always have to type in the 3D glasses effect. You can see there's a mixture of this red and cyan side by side, making it give it that 3D look. We'll do it with images. We'll also show you how to do it with type. I say this in lots of videos, but it is super easy. It's a cool effect. Let's jump in now and learn how to make it. Let's open up our images, file open, and in 11 visual styles, open up anaglyph 1 and 2. All right, so that's the second one. We're going to work on this one first. For this to work, we need to unlock the background, and we do that, we know, by just double-clicking the weird background and giving it a name. We're going to call it red. We're going to right-click red, duplicate that layer, and call it cyan. Cool. For the way this to work is you select on red, and you come down to this effects, okay, and go to blending options. And what we do is under advanced blending, there's one called channels. For the red one, turn off green and blue. We're just leaving the red channel on. Channels can be complicated, but for this effect, we don't need to know anything about them. Similar process for cyan. Okay, click on it, go down to effects, blending options, and in here, we want to turn just red off. It leaves us with the cyan color, mixing green and blue. Click OK. Now we just need to offset them. Basically, we need to move one way and one the other way. And it really depends on how advanced you want this effect. So I'm going to undo, put it back. You can just be super subtle. Okay, and with the move tool, it's easier with your keyboard. Okay, just use your right arrow. So I've got cyan selected, use your right arrow, I'm just kind of tapping it to the right. And now I've got this kind of like subtle effect. Can you see it's kind of, you see it all in there, right? Or you can go a bit further and just kind of really drag it out there. I'm going for subtle. I'm going to move it across a little bit. Tap, tap, tap. Now, one thing you might notice is see there's a red band that appears. Okay, depends on which way you went with it, left or right. Or you might end up with a cyan band. You have to just trim that out using the crop tool. So make sure you got a little bit of extra space. I'm just going to trim that up. Use my crop tool. Hit return. Your way. Let's go a little bit further. Let's jump to anaglyph 02. Now we could just do this image. Now you don't have to, but I quite like it when it gets either black and white or quite low colors. It really accentuates the cyan and the red. So you could go to adjustments and do black and white. Okay, this little option here we did have a million years ago, way back at this course. I'm going to go edit step backwards. What I often like doing is under adjustments using vibrance and just lowering the vibrance rather than like making it completely black and white. I like to have there a little bit of subtle color still in there. Cool. Now the one thing we need to do is we've got this like very non-destructive vibrance layer that we turn on and off, and that's very good, but doesn't work for this effect. So what I have to do is click vibrance, hold shift, click background, right click the two of them, and say merge layers. It's bad and destructive, but we just need it for this effect to work. Let's double click this first layer. Let's call it red. Let's right click him, duplicate him, and let's go to cyan. And same principles here. Cyan layer selected. I'm going to go to fix. I'm going to go to blending options, and I want red off. Gives me cyan. And the red layer is everything but. So I just want everything but red. Not everything but. It's just want red. Okay, so cyan is red off, and red is just red on. That's not helping you at all, is it? So I'm just going to move it left and right and just kind of see where we get. Cool. Now in this case, you can kind of see the cropping going on over here. Okay, so crop tool, tidy it in. It should snap to the edge nicely. Let's look at doing text. It has the same principle. So let's grab my type tool. I'm going to click once. Wow, it's a big font. Okay, I'm going to go down to, I don't know, maybe 500. Go. And let's type in, still too big. Select it all. Find an appropriate font size. Not 500, not even 200. I think mine's dealing with because I transformed it last time. I'm just going to scale it down using Command T or Control T. Go. And I'm going to pick a font color that's not red. You can see it's actually white. It's because I'm in between these two layers. So the text has to be on top for this to work. Okay, and I'm going to, these are my Scott shoes. Scott shoes. Do horror. I'm going and picking fonts now instead of just getting on with it. Scanning it down again. All right, so I've got, I don't even know where this is going to go. There it's going to go. Return. So it works the same principle from now on. We just duplicate it and then play with those advanced blending modes. So right click it. I'm going to duplicate this layer. This one's going to be shoes red. This is going to be double click the word shoes. This is going to be shoes cyan. This one here, I click on effects, blending modes. Cyan is red off. The red one is just red on. Go away, boom. And then we can just offset it again using my arrows. Again, depends on how I'm going to stick both of them together so I can move around. And that is the anaglyphic effect. If you're like me, you'll never remember the word anaglyphic. I always have to Google, what is the 3D glasses effect 1980s? Generally something will pop up called anaglyph. If you do have some of those glasses, nobody does. I couldn't find any to make it work, but apparently this actually works. Get some 3D glasses, order them from eBay or Amazon, put them on, and apparently it's all really 3D. We're watching Ghostbusters in 3D. Super cool and frightening. I still got nightmares from one of those early Ghostbusters movies. The painting and it came out. I don't know. I was young. I'm babbling now. Let's get on to the next video. Hi there, it's your class project. This one is Anaglyph 03. Open it up from your 11 visual styles folder. Okay, and do the same thing. Duplicate the layer, make one red, make one cyan. You might have to rewatch the last video. In your notes here, so use the file that I gave you, but also do another one with your own image. I'd love to see your own image being used. Practice on this one, use your own image. Look to use some text as well, using that same anaglyphic effect, and then go and share it with me. All right, I will see you in the next video. Have fun with Anaglyphs. Hi there, in this video we are going to make some vintage style Instagram filter looking images. So this is before and that's after. We'll do another example here, before, after. Let's jump in now and work out how to do it. All right, let's open up our file open, and we're going to be using vintage 01. Thank you, Frankie Cordova. I picked this image because it's kind of retro already. It's got some sweet 90s kicks on, and it's not like a professional photograph. Doesn't matter the photograph you pick. Now I'm going to show you my techniques, but just know that everyone has their own kind of opinion on what an old vintage photograph looks like. You saw mine at the beginning, so if you like that, follow along. But you might find steps that you can cut out or enhance. It depends on your image and how kind of retro you want it. I was born in the 80s, so retro for me might be different from you. All right, first thing, let's do that kind of Instagram look where we get the matte black. So with background layer selected, go to adjustments, and let's go to levels. And before, what we're doing with levels is we spent time trying to make it all really sharp black and sharp white. But the vintage look, we're going to do the opposite. We're going to use these two little sliders down there we haven't used before. You grab this one and yank. I'm going to go way too far. Can you see it just yanks out some of the black. Okay, so I'm yanking out the black, turn these levels on and off. Get to a level where you like it. And the same with the whites. Just means older cameras just didn't have good white balance, and photographs had a tendency to be a bit washed out. We kind of want to recreate that now. Cameras have got too good. The other thing is I want to get this kind of like over crazy sharp look. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate background. So I'm right clicking it, duplicate. This is going to be my sharp layer. Spell it. There's a couple of ways of getting the sharpness. You can use under sharpen. There's a bunch of stuff. I like this one here under other, and we're going to high pass. I'm only showing you this one now because we're further on in the course, and we're going to get a little bit more extreme. So what we're looking for is we don't want to go too far where you can start seeing it. You want this kind of like this bit where you can see the edges are kind of overdone. Click OK. So this high pass filter doesn't really work at the moment, but with sharp layer selected, we're going to play around with one of these blending modes. I want to scroll through and turn, like you can start to see some of them. It really depends on what you want to do. Right? I'm zooming in. If you want this kind of color burn look, it's cool. It's not what I want in this case. I'm looking for hard light. I've already practiced. Okay, but you can see what I'm doing. I'm just kind of like accentuating all the, it kind of removes a lot of the gray tones. There's a lot more strong blacks and strong whites without any of the gray tones. I like it. It gives that kind of ghosty effect around some of the sharper edges. Kind of bleeds out. Again, you can turn that one on or off depending on what you want to do. The next one that I like is giving it that kind of, it's more fashion, but it looks really good with these images. Under adjustments, we're going to go to curves, which we haven't used before. Don't worry, looks scary. All I want you to do is switch it to blue. And see there's a dot in the top right and the bottom left. I'm just going to lift it up and lift this one down. And it gives it that kind of orangey teal kind of fashion look. Turn it on, turn it off. Can you see what I mean? It's got a kind of a sun bleached fashion look. I like it. Last thing we're going to do is a vignette. Okay, so a vignette is just a kind of frosting around the outside that happened in older photographs, even earlier than the 80s. But it's a cool effect. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new layer. I'm going to stick it all the way at the top. I'm going to call this one vignette, which I can do this about vignette. That's close enough. Okay, to do a vignette, the easiest way is grab your gradient tool. Let's switch it from linear to radial. And what it's doing is, up the top here, I'm going to pick the second option. That's going to make my foreground color blend out to invisible. Okay, so pop that back in. So now you need to make sure your foreground color, at the moment mine's white, yours might be black, so it might look like that. I just want to make sure this foreground color, whatever it is, double click it and pick a kind of a mud brown. So drag my two sliders there, I clicked in here until I found something muddy and murky, and I'm going to click, hold, and drag from the center, out. Okay, yours is probably not doing that, yours is probably doing this. Okay, so all you need to do is click on reverse, then click and drag out, and you should get something like this. It's not exactly what I want, but with the vignette layer selected, I'm back in my move tool, and I'm going to start messing around with these. Remember the shortcut, hold shift, hit plus. And find something you like, you might have to tone it down. I think I like overlay. I'm just going to tone down the opacity. Okay, so it's not as extreme. See, on, off, on, off. I want a little bit more. Cool. And that is my flavor of an old vignette image. We'll go a little bit further in the next video, but I want to show you how you can kind of maybe do this, because there's quite a few little steps, right? I'm going to show you how to do the next image a lot quicker. So let's go and open up file, open. There's one called Vintage 2. Sharon Garcia, thank you very much. Awesome image. I love it. I think the neighbors even had that car. Cool. So instead of having to go through that whole process again, we can kind of cheat, right? What I'm going to do is I want that layer. I want that layer. Now I'm holding down my shift key to click the vignette, holding shift and grabbing. I don't need this layer. I'd like to bring the sharp layer, but that's specifically for this particular image. I just want these top three. Okay. U3, grab the move tool, click, hold, drag it to this one. Wait, come down. Go on. Gives me my curves, my levels. The vignette doesn't quite match. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click off, grab the vignette, and try and line it up. If it doesn't fit, hey, mine does. Yours is never going to fit. If it doesn't, just transform it. So Command T on a Mac, Control T on a PC, and just kind of scale it around. Yours might be landscape this time. Okay, I'm never that fussed. It doesn't have to be perfect vignette. But anyway, to get the really cool sharpen thing, we'll practice that. Right click, background, duplicate the layer. I'm going to call this one sharp, and we're going to go to filter. And a cool thing about Photoshop is that you can go back into here and go to high pass again. You see it's up the top now. This is like a redo button. It says Photoshop says, well, you did this a second ago. Do you want to redo this? And I'm like, yeah, go. Man, it worked. But then I want to blend it again. I can't even remember which one we ended up using. Sharp was highlight. So here, let's go highlight. So it does make it a little bit easier to kind of, when you can copy and paste these over from document to document. Let's zoom in a little bit. Let's look at before and after. You might be less impressed with how vintage this is looking. Again, this is what I feel like is vintage. You will find a ton of other videos on YouTube for like different ways of doing vintage, and you might find those work better for you. One thing we might do to kind of make this look a little bit more legit vintage is to add some dust and scratches. So let's go to file open. And what I've done for you is I found this one here called dust.png. Okay, if you Google dust and scratches, there's all sorts of stuff online. I liked this one here, so what I'm going to do is grab my move tool, drag it onto this guy. Just you might have to scale it, transform it, okay, to get it to how you want it to be, how big or large you think this should be. Okay, I'm going to mine just overlaying. It's sitting on the top of everything. I'm going to call it dust even. And then I'm going to find a blending mode that works. Man, we do lots of blending modes, right? It's the real secret superpower of Photoshop. Now, I think the only one that kind of works on this one is divide. Yeah, divide. And I'm going to lower the opacity. So I pick divide here, and the opacity I'm going to lower right down. Turn on, turn off, zoom in. It depends on what you want to do, right? That's pretty heavy going with the dust and scratches. You might find another one online. It's just a little less over the top. I might now drag this back to my original. Oh, the first one we've done. Sometimes you can't even tell where it is, so I like to hit transform, Command T on Mac, Control T on PC, and you can see the edges. Even though I'm not resizing it, it's just a nice way to see the edges. How vintage do we look? So look, we can barely see them all. Let's move it up a little bit. My layers. After, before. After, before. I like it. All right, that is going to be the end of making vintage images. Let's get into the next video. Hi there, this project is going to be making your own vintage image. I found this sweet picture of a bike from Corey Motta. It's in your exercise files, okay? It's called Vintage 03 in the folder called 11 Visual Styles. Now run through the process from the last video. You can use or ignore or add to any of those techniques you liked. And when you're finished, go ahead and share it with me. Then go ahead and do your own version. So in your Word doc, which is in the exercise files called class projects, here it is, it's this one for 69. Open up the image, use your own techniques, do your own version, and then share it with me. Instagram, I am bring your own laptop. And also put it here in the comments or in the assignment section. All right, I'm looking forward to how you interpret vintage, and I'd love to see it. Next video, please. Hi there, this video is all about this paper cut effect. Super cool, super fun. The text is still editable, okay, so we can type in anything we like here. You can move the paper cut effect around as well. It's all still kind of editable in there, along with the colors. If you hate my color choices like I do, you can go through and pick other, more horrible ones. Let's jump in now and figure out how to do it. All right, this is one of the few times we're not actually opening a file. Photoshop is such the file open and then start working on an image. But we're going to start from a file, new document. Okay, and I'm going to switch mine to inches. I'm going to use 10 by 10. Here in centimeters, it's about that much, 25. Back to inches, we'll use a resolution of 300 and make sure it's set to RGB. Let's click OK. Create even. Okay, so we need some colors to start with. You can just make them up as you go along. I'm going to go to Window, Extensions, Adobe Color Themes. Once it eventually loads, I'm going to click on Explore. And I'm going to pick this one. If you want to follow exactly like mine, you can type Copia AV Cool One into search, but it's one of the most popular this month. And I'm going to click on this, I'm going to click Add to Swatches. Library's going to pop in, go away, pop that back in there. And now down the bottom here of my swatches panel, which you might not be able to see yet, go to Window, turn on Swatches, down the bottom of those 5 colors there. Okay, first up we need to create a new layer. Okay, I'm going to click this little tune up page here, double click it, I'm going to call this one color 1. So make sure you double click the actual word layer 1 to rename it. Now I want the blob that runs around the outside. There's a couple of ways of doing it. If you already know how to use a pen tool, go ahead and use that. If you have no idea what any of these tools use the curvature tool. Even if you are a hardcore pen tool user, curvature tool might be the new best thing for you. I've totally converted over to it. So I'm going to select on it. You need to make sure at the top here you're set to path. I'm on this color layer here, and the curvature tool works like this. This is just a basic rundown. If you want to go through some more hardcore pen tool and curvature tool, it's really the home of Adobe Illustrator. I've got a course on that. Go check that one out, both in advanced and intro. But the curvature tool works like this. Click once, nothing happens. Click again, nothing really happens. The third time though, it tries to join all 3 up with a nice curve, and it just draws really pretty curves. So I'm going to click lots of times to draw a random shape. You might have to play around this a couple of times to get the, I guess, the feeling of how this thing works. I'm gonna keep clicking. You can see clearly that's what I'm doing. At least it's curved. It's not great. Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. All right, so once you get around and you've done your first wiggle, you can go through and click on these dots and just kind of move them around a little bit to kind of, it wasn't looking good. I'm not going to do that because you would be forever watching me jiggle this around. But I like it, it's working for me. And what we need to do now is we need to do this option up here that says make a selection. Click OK. Okay, it turns that path we made into a selection. We're done with the curvature tool. It's going to go back to the move tool for no reason, just to finish using the curvature tool for the moment. At the moment, if I fill this right, it's going to fill the center. Okay, so it's not what I want. So I'm going to go back, and before I fill it, I want to invert the selection. So go to select, go to inverse. Now I have this outside bit selected. On my color 1 layer, I'm going to make sure over here I pick my first color that I'm going to use, and nothing really happens. I clicked on it. All it's done is it's loaded it over here in my foreground color, so that when I go to edit and I go to fill, and yours is going to default to content aware, just switch it up to foreground color. Click OK, and there you go. Cool, huh? Let's go to select, deselect, and I'm going to turn the background layer on and off so you can see there's a big hole in the middle here. And once we add some drop shadows and a bunch of other layers, it's going to look quite cool. So there is a lot of kind of just going through. Now I'll do the next one with you, and then I'll speed it up, okay? You can totally speed it up. All these videos here down the bottom right, you can either speed me up, or because I talk real fast, you can slow me down. Look for the little cog in the bottom of the window that you're watching right now. Speed or slow me down. All right, so new layer. This one's going to be called color 2. Grab back to my curvature tool, and now I'm going to go through and just kind of make a curve that's just on the inside of this. So I'm going to kind of follow it, but kind of duck in and out. Looks kind of cool doing it that way. Sometimes you lob a few of these off, make their own little gang. I'll try and do it fast so you're not watching this forever. And you should go around and adjust it now by just clicking and dragging on these. But I'm not going to. I'm going to load as a selection. Click OK. I invert that selection. Pick my new color, which is the second one from the end, and then I go to edit and I go to fill with foreground color. Click OK. And that's the next one. The trouble is it's on the top, so I'm going to go to select, deselect, and I want color 1 to be at the top and color 2. I'm going to keep building this up. So what I'm going to do now is get the editor to speed this up a bit because it's the same thing again, and we'll jump in when we start adding the drop shadows. All right, you are back. You're like, okay, so he's only done 4 colors. Why hasn't he done 5 colors? Because the background will actually, so this last color will just fill this hole, so we don't need to do a drawing for this. You can have 20 colors, you can just have 2. I'm using 5. So background here, I'm going to pick the last color. I'm going to go to edit, fill, and I'll fill my background with the green. So it's looking okay, you might like it just here. It's not the paper cut effect, but it's still kind of cool, right? So now we need to do 2 last things. We need to add the drop shadows, and we need to get it inside a bit of text. Okay, so we'll work on this color 1 first. Okay, so with color 1 selected, go down to effects, and go to drop shadow. Cool. And I like using 2 drop shadows. Okay, we're getting a bit hardcore, but 1 drop shadow is going to fill in this kind of first bit, so I'm using opacity up quite a bit. Distance is how far out it is. I'm going to have a nice small one here. The size is how fuzzy that is. I want to be quite thin for the first one. And then what you can do is, can you see this little plus button here? I can make a second one. So there's 2 on top of each other that are exactly the same. So one of these, don't mind which one, I'm going to use the bottom one. I'm going to, instead of being quite shallow, I'm going to make the distance a bit bigger, but mainly the size a lot broader. Okay, and maybe I need to lower down the opacity of the other one. It's going to kind of, I guess, fill it out. So I want it to be a bit darker. So this top one here is maybe a bit too dark, so I'm going to lower it down. So let's have a little look. This one here is the kind of hard shadow, and then this one here is the kind of filling it out one. Click OK. You do not want to do that for every layer, I know. So what we're going to do is we're going to right click the word color 1. I'm going to go copy layer style, and let's just see this little area here, just kind of tucks it in, still here. Just a nice tidy way of keeping it. And then I can click on color 2, I can hold shift, grab color 4, and you're like, yep, it's that easy. Right click any one of them and say paste layer style. Here's my cool little effect. Am I happy with the colors? I'm not anymore. Okay, next thing up, I'm just going to click all these little tidy and then click off. I now need to put them inside a bit of text. So there's 2 things I need to do. Is one, I need to group all these together because it's easier to put them all together if they're all kind of smushed together. So with them all selected, I'll click on the top one, held down shift, and grab the last one. I can right click them and be bad and say merge layers, but we're going to be super non-destructive and go convert to smart object. It's going to take a little bit of time. Now they're all in one layer. And if you've watched the Smart Objects video earlier in the tutorial, you can double click on this to open them up in their own tab to mess around with them later on again. So they're still in there, hiding away. What I want to do now is grab my type tool. I'm going to click once. I'm going to type in X. Now I'm using Museo Slab. You might find Roboto Slab. It's an easy one to find online. Google Fonts have them. Whereas Museo Slab, you can go to google.com/fonts and you'll find Museo Slab in there. I like it's not thick enough for me, so I'm going to go with the Super Museo Slab 1000. Boom. You can use any font. I'm using my Command T and holding Shift. Okay, to make it bigger. Get into position, and we did this earlier on. We had an image and we clipped it inside of an X. So, do you remember how we did it? I bet you don't. It's long into the tutorial. If you do, you get a big high five from me. I've taught this class loads, and by the end of the stage, we're like, vaguely. So the rules are, okay, to recap, the X needs to be underneath the image. You need to have the top image selected, and you go to Layer, and you go to Create Clipping Mask. And there we jammed inside. I'm liking the colors more now. Now they're all kind of clipped. What you can do is you can individually move these two layers. So color layer selected, my move tool. I can just move them around and kind of get it how I want. That's kind of cool. You can also move the X around with selecting the X layer. Okay, and what you'll notice is we don't have a background anymore. So I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to put it all the way to the back. I can call it background, even though we spent the whole class removing that name. And we're going to go to edit. We're going to go to fill. And you, my friend, are going to be black, white, black. Let's go black. Look better on black. And that, my friends, is the paper cut effect. We've done it with blobs. You can do it with spikes. We use the curvature tool. You could use the pen tool. You could use the lasso tool to get your selection with real pointy edges like that. Start with that kind of selection. I'll show you the colors. I promised to show you the colors that I did before. I liked this one better. You might not. A little bit carried away with the blobs here, and the colors just aren't sitting right for me. Before we go, I know this is a long video already. I might just show you what I do if I don't like the colors. Because I don't. Got color selected, got adjustments. I'm going to go to hue and saturation, and I'm going to drag this left and right until I find a group of colors that I don't hate. Wow. I might have to go back. Those color combinations aren't sitting well with me. All right, I'm giving up. You shouldn't. Pick good colors to start with. Don't end up here with pinks and greens and peaches. Let's get on to the next video. You are not going to be surprised what this class assignment is. I want you to take the effects that we learned in the last video and use your own text, your own colors, better than mine, and your own fonts. You can do that just one straight name, or like I did, I kind of had them all on their own layer with different ones because I was practicing, and all different colors. When you're finished, please share them with me, either on Instagram, I am Bring Your Own Laptop, or here on the assignments or in the comments. Take a screenshot, show me what you did, show me what colors you picked. On to the next video. Hi there, welcome to the video about artboards in Photoshop. A quick little run through of what they are. Basically, they are just different pages within a Photoshop document. Up until now in this course, we've just been working on one image at a time in its own Photoshop document. But there are times where it's handy to have multiple pages within one Photoshop document. This is the example we're going to build. It's an ad banner that I have to make for Google Ads. Okay, and the first one is the square shape, okay, the tile. They also need a leaderboard version and a skyscraper version. So it makes sense to have different pages within this one document. It's handy for us because we get to see kind of a unity between all three. Plus we get to copy and paste between these artboards really easily. Photoshop's handy because what it does is it'll export these as 3 separate files for us. Another good use case is say for web design or UI design. Now we're not covering web and UI design a lot in this course, so there is another Photoshop course for web that I've made. You can go check that out if you want to kind of move on to that kind of use case for Photoshop. But let's say in this case, I've designed a website for desktop. I haven't finished the tablet version, but there's my mobile. You can see they have consistencies across the two. They're slightly different for the different screen sizes, but it allows me to just copy and paste graphics between the two. And when I'm finished, exporting them separately. Another good use case is I do this when I'm making my video courses. You're watching my video course. So my promotional images, they have to go in a bunch of different places and a bunch of different sizes. You can see all very similar kind of graphics, but there's more of a letterbox design. There is this kind of just standard kind of video shape. There's an overview version that has this grayed out bit where I put some text on a website. There's some small versions. There's a small version with a green banner saying coming soon. Now these are just a couple of my use cases. You might be doing it might just be concepts. You might have concept A, B, and C. They might be the same size. They don't have to be different sizes, but you can see them all side by side. So that's the super long intro for what an artboard is. Let's go through, create them, use them, and find out some of their quirks now. Let's get started. Okay, to create artboards, let's go to File. We're going to make a new document. And we are going to work over here. We're going to be working in pixels because we're going to be making that banner ad like we saw at the beginning. It's going to be 3 sizes. Often there's 7, 10. Okay, depends on what ad network you're going to. I have to do these kinds of jobs all the time, so artboards, amazing. So the kind of standard tile for Google Ads are 250 pixels by 250 pixels, 72 is the resolution, and it's this little checkbox here that's not normally on. That's the magic one that's going to create artboards. Let's click create. Awesome. So I've got a tiny square. That's my kind of Google tile. And the big difference is, can you see my layer structure? This is what's a bit different from using artboards. Basically, they're groups. Everything inside of this little drop down here that says artboard is associated with this panel here. Let's double click this to give it a name. And this one's going to be my Scott shoes. Scott shoes. And this is going to be my 250 by 250 pixels. This is just a name, doesn't actually do anything. But if we name these now, it's going to make it easier when we export later on. You'll notice it changes up the top here as well. Great, so that's one page. I want to make another one. I'll show you both ways because they're both useful. Let's go to layer, new, and let's go to artboard. It's the super long but super clear way of doing it. I'm going to call this one Scott shoes, and this one is going to be the other kind of common leaderboard size, okay, which is a terrible size. It's that long, thin one. Okay, they call them leaderboards. And I'm going to change it down here to match. So the top bit along the top is just me writing it, just so I know what size it is, but this is the actual dimensions. Click OK. Ended up in a strange place. This happens with artboards. They're kind of new for Photoshop, so yeah, there's a few bugs. So to move artboards around, okay, it's hiding underneath your move tool. There's like an artboard move tool. Go on him and grab the name and just kind of drag it out so it's in a nicer place. Now that we're on this tool, you'll see that because we're on the artboard tool, we get a few extra features. This is one of them. Click on that, and we get a duplicate. So that's really handy if you were just making, say, you just want to make concepts. Okay, so you're doing a design for a website or for a brochure or a flyer. You just want to make a bunch of different options. You can make them within here. Okay, and we'll show you how to export them at the end. So I'm going to go back. So this guy here, okay, I'm going to select him, and what you'll notice is, can you see at the top here? This is where I can adjust my size. I can go back to any of these ones. So I can click on him, see the name. It says Scott Shoes 250, 250. They're out there. So that's how I make my amendments. I can click on artboard 1. So you can either click on the layer name over here or just the word over here. And I'm going to change this one to the other kind of common size, just as ugly. It is 120 by 600. Super tough. This is the skyscraper. Super tough kind of dimensions. So double click over here. Let's call this one Scott Shoes. This was 120 by 600. All right, so that's how you make your artboards. Let's work through little projects so that you can see the kind of pros and cons for using it. So I'm going to bring in my graphic. I'm going to go file open. I've got a file ready for you in your exercise files under artboards. So 12 artboards. We're going to bring in shoe.jpg. Awesome. So I've got this guy here. I'm going to go back to my move tool. Click hold. Drag, drag, drag. Drag, drag, drag. And we're going to drag it. Which artboard? We're going to try for this one, but it really is up to Photoshop. It decides where it's going. So this is one of the fun things about using artboards. Where did it go? I can see it there. I can tell what layer it is on. Often just kind of clicking and dragging to see where it is, and then try and dragging it on the right artboard. Let go. So that's a fun game. it tries to automatically do it, and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you just need to say, actually, friend, okay, I'm going to double click him. He is called Shu. And I want you to be on this first tile here, which is going to be Ifa, okay, which is my 250 by 250. What you also might do to keep things a little bit easier to work with is use your artboard tool. Just keep these guys separate. I'm not going to, but when you're new, it's easy just to keep these guys far apart so they don't end up dragging into the wrong parts. But I'm going to keep them tight so that you can see what I'm doing. So back to my move tool. Okay, so I've got my giant shoe. I'm going to convert it into a smart object because we are professionals. Then I'm going to transform it. And I'm going to put my shoe in here, just because that's some of the graphics we've been working on. I want to add it in here. Return. I want to have a copy on this version as well. So what we'll do is we'll right click it here and we'll duplicate it. Shoe. I'm just going to call it shoe copy even. And I'm going to drag it to, what's the name of this one? I'm going to drag it into this guy. There he is over there. Cool. I'm going to transform it again. I'm going to rotate it around. Now this isn't the best ad I've ever made. I'm going to duplicate it, right click, duplicate. I wanted to cheat. Okay, I've been trying not to use too many shortcuts, but hey, it's hard. If you want to duplicate this, see shoe copy, just drag it down to the new little tab there and it makes a copy. It's a little automatic one. It's on the top. So I'm going to transform it around. Come on, we're 70 videos in. Shortcuts are not that bad. Come on. We get to the advanced course, we'll go super shortcuts. Okay, but for this one, essentials, we'll try and keep it good. So I've got a couple of versions of it there. I want another one down here. So which one do I want to duplicate? I'll use this one here, which is on the, say here, duplicate, put it onto. If you like me, you can't see that top layer. I kind of dragged and held, but you might actually have to close some of these down or just move this up a little bit so you've got more room for your layers. So I'm just dragging in between these layers. Eventually you'll see that little double arrow. Cool, there's that fella. You, my friend, are going to go down here. All right, so we're part of the way there. And before we go on too much further, I want to show you the perks of using artboards and smart objects. Now these two things tie together and make for productivity amazingness. So when we first brought in this guy, we converted into a smart object because we are professionals. Why is that so good? In an earlier tutorial, we looked at smart objects and we looked at this little icon here, so to indicate that they're a smart object. But what happens when you duplicate a smart object is that they're actually copies of each other. So they're all linked in a fashion. We're able to rotate and scale them, and the resolution's still locked in there, the perk of smart object, but they are all connected. So watch this. If I double click any of these guys, double click the little icon here. Okay, we did this with vector art. What ends up happening is there's that shoe. I'm going to close that down. Okay, so there's the one I'm working on, and I'll close this down again just so you can see. So just the guy I've got open, unsaved, bad Dan. If I double click on this little icon, it opens up this weird file. It's the same name, it's called shoe. It's the name of the layer, but it's called this PSB. Don't worry about the name. What it is it's the smart object. So we kind of like dived inside of this guy here, and he's opened in another tab. What I can do in here now, though, is I can make adjustments to one that adjusts them all. So shoe layer selected, adjustments panel. I'm just going to grab the hue and saturation slider and just drag this hue around to pick a different color shoe. Okay, say that I want this color shoe. I go File, I go to Save, and then jump back into this first tab, and come on. So that's a real big perk of using smart objects, especially when you start using artboards. Because we've done 3 sizes here. I've got jobs that do have 10 or 15 different sizes, especially for things like these ads. It might be print ads, it might be web ads, it might be just concepts, lots of different concepts. But when you can update one and they all update, man, it's a lifesaver. So I can go back into here again now and make another adjustment, hit save, and then back into here and it adjusts. When you finish, this thing here is not really a file you want to save. It's just kind of, you can just close it down, it's done. To get back in there again, just double click the icon and it opens back up. You can see there my layer structure is still there, all very non-destructive. Let's look at a couple of other things. Let's bring in a logo. So when you're bringing in a logo, especially if it's vector, something that's been made in something like Adobe Illustrator, you either copy and paste it from Illustrator like we did earlier on, or go File, Place Embedded. It's instead of going File, Open, Logo. If I open it in Photoshop, it loses some of its Adobe Illustrator magic, the vectorness of it. If that's really kind of unclear for you, you're not sure what vector is, whenever it's a .ai or a .eps, okay, instead of something like a JPEG, just go to the File and go to Place Embedded, okay? Retains a little bit of quality. File, Place, love it all, click OK, get it to a right size. And when you do it this way, it'll automatically be, hit return to kind of confirm it, to say, yeah, that's the size I want it to be. Okay, and you'll see it's automatically a smart object. So I'm going to make a duplicate, drag it to this one. You'll notice before when I did a duplicate, so I duplicated here, I was dragging it to the specific layer, whichever way works well for you. So I can drag it to here, and I know it's on this layer. Or, okay, this duplicate here, I'm going to drag him over here, and I'm going to pop him in there. Either way works. Sometimes though, when you're dragging it, like that second way I did, Photoshop has a bit of a breakdown. So if you do find like artboards, you're like, man, these go a bit crazy sometimes. They're new, and they do go a little bit crazy. You also notice that the quality is not super amazing. It's mainly because I'm working with such small sizes. They should be about there. That's how we're going out to Google for our ad banners. All right, so basically we're just going to look at the same principles as before. Okay, so we went through and double-clicked the icon for the shoe. We're going to do the same thing for the logo. You can do any of these guys here. And the difference is, if I double-click on it, you need to have Illustrator installed. It's going to slowly open up in the background. There it is there. We'll speed it up. If this appears, just click OK. And here we are in Illustrator. Okay, if you are not good at Illustrator and you want to, I've got a course on it. There's an Essentials and an Advanced Illustrator course. But what we're going to do is we are going to grab the white arrow. We're going to click on one of these little corners here and just click and drag it around. So click it all once, and then click and drag it. We're totally wrecking this, by the way. It's not looking good. But I guess what I want to do is show you that you can distort this. And if I hit Save, File, Save, so I'm inside Illustrator. I'm going to jump back to Photoshop. You notice they all update. Cool. So using artboards and smart objects, you can see it's updated across them all. Back to Illustrator, and I'm going to say I want, using my white arrow, I'm selecting all of these guys, and I want to change the fill color to dark gray. Hit Save. Now I'm going to close it down. Back to Photoshop. Magic. Cool. I want to go and create the buttons and stuff, but that's kind of not, I'm just going to draw a rectangle and put text on it. What I'll do now, though, is I'll show you how to export these guys as separate layers so that you can send them off to whoever needs them. So we're going to do exporting in a greater detail, but I don't want to kind of leave this video without showing how to get these out. So this is the short version. You go to File, you go to Export, and you go to this one that says Export As. The cool thing about it is because we named them, you see here I've got 1, 2, 3 images ready to go. I can decide on this first one here, actually I want you to be a JPEG, and I can play with the quality slider. You can see how big it's going to be. Same with you. Actually, I might select both of these, do them at the same time. Say I want you both to be JPEGs, and I both want you to be about 60. You can see nice small file sizes. Let's hit Export All. And where am I going to stick them? I'm going to stick them on my desktop. I'm just going to click Open. And off they go. Let's check my desktop. Here we are. There's my 3 little images. Okay, ready to go. All kind of cropped out the right sizes with the right names. So make sure you name your artboards. Just saves you time here. Because especially if you have to do an update. So I'm back in Photoshop and I decide actually the shoe was the wrong color. I'm going to go to a blue, hit Save, come back into here. You can see all updated. You can see now we're getting our flow on Export, Export As. It remembers all my settings. It's got all my names. And this is where we become a super pro. Back to the desktop. And there they all are. And that new kind of file format. That new image, but the same with that new kind of color, but they all have the new colored shoe, all the new names. So it's starting to get nice and streamlined and workflowed. I'm going to go through now and finish off my ad with some buttons for no good reason. Just I feel like they need buttons. So you can skip on, but to wrap up, it doesn't really matter what you're doing. Banner ads are a great example. Social media posts, that might be on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, using all the different shapes and sizes. You could create graphic doing that with different artboards. If artboards are freaking you out because there's smart objects and naming them and exporting them is a bit hard, just have separate documents. There's no problem with that. File new, make one that's 250 by 250, save it as a JPEG, and then close it down, open up the next one, okay, and do the same thing and do the different size. I'm not going to know, and maybe as your skills develop in Photoshop, you might revisit this video to get a better understanding of artboards. But no, they are a little tricky. You can see them over here. You can tidy them all up by closing them down. Look how tidy that is for the artboards. All right, so I'm going to draw my button now. You can go. I'm going to pick a color. Okay, so I've picked my rectangle tool. Okay, and I've picked this guy here. I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to hit my button. My buy now button. I'm going to put little rounded corners on the edges. Can't really see that now. There we go. So how many pixels? 2 pixels? Yeah, that's good. Okay, so there's my little button. I'm going to add a tiny drop shadow to it. Now, I probably mentioned this already. If you want to get into like full UI and web design out of Photoshop, we're going to use a lot of the same skills we learned in this course, but we'll use them specifically for that. And I've got a course like 100% dedicated to app and web design, so we're not going to cover that all in this course. Okay, type tool. Type tool, if you end up clicking on here, we've had this problem before, it tries to like join these two up, which is problematic. Okay, so I'm going to escape, and I'm just going to click over here and not use my ginormous font. 10 points, I'm going to make color white. And I'm going to type buy now. Buy now. You probably noticed already, but I often don't use the font sizes. I'll just use the transform tool. Unless I know it has to be a perfect size, but my buy now button is a bit big. The buy now button's never big enough. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, where are we working on this one here? Okay, so what is that layer? I'm going to delete that. It's a random text layer I made. So I've got my rectangle, my buy now. So I'm going to select both of these. So I click on the top one, hold shift, click the second one. I'm going to drag them both down to my little turned up page. Then I grab both these guys and move them over here. You'll work with me. Same with you two. Make a new one. Drag it over here. I'm going to transform both of these guys. If you've got them both selected, they'll transform together. And I'm going to try and stick in the middle. I'm going to finally save this document. Okay. I'll stick it on my desktop as banner ads. This is for Scott Shoes. Banner ad. And often I'll put the version number, just so there's going to be lots of updates from the client, especially because the ad's not very good. Need some more graphics going on, but I'm trying to keep it simple for this tutorial. Last thing we'll do as well is I've added some adjustments. I'm going to go File, Export again, Export As. I don't have to do anything, just click on Export All, Open, and hopefully we'll be able to go check my desktop. And there they all are with my buy now buttons. Awesome, huh? All right, that is the end of this video. Well, let's move into the next one. Hi there, this video is all about the differences between CMYK and RGB. So why do we need two of them and what are they? Basically, there is a way of mixing colors that your computer can do using red, green, and blue. That's why it's called RGB. And it can mix those three colors together to make all of the colors you can see in front of us in this kind of like color explosion. The trouble is your commercial printer or your printer sitting on your desk, if you pop it open and have a look, it uses a different group of colors to try and mimic what we've got here on the screen. It uses CMYK, which is cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. You've probably bought lots of those cartridges in your life. The big difference is that RGB has a secret ingredient, okay? It has light. So your computer screen looking in front of you has light shining out of it, lumens. So it's able to achieve different colors or more colors. Whereas CMYK has to deal with a bit of plain old white paper. So there's no light coming out of it. So the colors can't be achieved. You've probably seen it before. It looks good on screen. Hit print. Your poor printer turns it to mud, okay? Because it just doesn't have light coming out of it, so it can't achieve some of those really strong, rich colors. Let's have a look at the difference between the two. So I've opened up File, Open, and in your exercise files called 13, there's one called RGB versus CMYK. This one's in RGB. How do I know? You can see it in the tab here. It is RGB, and that's how most things are going to come to you in the world. Digital cameras shoot RGB. Downloading something from the internet, RGB. Let's have a look at it in CMYK. Let's go to Image, Mode, and switch it to CMYK. Ready, CD, boo. I'm not sure how much of a notice change you can see in this video, but I'm going to go Undo. RGB, CMYK, RGB, CMYK. Great, not great. Great, not great. Okay, so why would you end up in CMYK when it doesn't look as good? It's when you're going out to often a commercial printer. So you've been asked to do a print, say it's one of your amazing photographs that you're getting printed commercially, or you're working more as a designer and you're getting an image ready for a magazine. They're going to say, we want CMYK, please. So what you're going to have to do is open up your image and switch it to CMYK and now save out a JPEG and give them that. So it has a kind of a very specific use case. It's physical printing. You might be sending it to a sign writer. As part of their specifications, they might say it has to be this big, this much resolution, and it has to be CMYK. So that's how to convert it. The trouble is there's not as many colors, right? So often I'll have two versions because so much of things we do today have dual use. Especially for me, maybe as a designer, I'm doing stuff that's going to print, but it's also going to be downloaded from a website or uploaded to the website or going to social media, banner ads, all sorts of stuff. So if I'm going to convert this one to CMYK to send to print, it's a one-way street, right? So I go to image, I go to mode, and I go CMYK, and then I go back to mode and go to RGB watch. The colors just don't come back. You can't, it's a one-way street. So once you've gone to CMYK, okay, you can't like convert it back to RGB. It's still going to look flat. It is RGB technically, but you've lost all those colors. So you might want to do a save as. So you've got two versions. I'm going to go to edit, step backwards until it was legitimately RGB still. Nice and colorful. So I'll just go to file, save as, and I'll add the word CMYK at the end. So I know it's a slightly more washed out version. All right, so it's I guess a funny one to understand, but I guess I don't want you leaving this course because it's only a matter of time before it pops up that you need to understand what RGB versus CMYK is. Let's talk about two use cases and then we'll move out of this video. Let's talk about the first use case. So let's say I'm a photographer. I'm working on this photograph that I've filmed, that I've shot with the color splash here, done my tweaks, done my labels, done my masking, all looks great. And now I've been asked for it from a designer. They want it in CMYK, or from a print shop, they want it in CMYK. So what I'm going to do, first of all, I'm going to make sure I've got an RGB version because remember, it's a one-way street. So I'm going to save it as, I'm going to put this onto my desktop. This one's going to be called Color Splash, RGB. So I've now got that one, right? Now I'm going to go down the one-way street for the one that Bob, the graphic designer, needs. Okay, lost all my colors, boo. There's just no way of getting that because paper just doesn't have that luminance. So now we'll go File, Save As again, and this one's going to be my CMYK. So I've got two versions of it, right? One of them is the one with a fuller color and one of them without it. So I'm going to send this one to Bob because that's what he asked for. Okay, and the other use case and the more typical one is, let's say I am this photographer or a graphic designer and I've got this. However, we got this image. This is my original, nope, I want the original RGB one. Where is he? So the one with all the colors. Okay, so I've just got the RGB one open and now I need to put this into, say it's going to go into some social media. I just use this RGB version. Copy and paste it into the file that I'm working with. But let's say we're doing something different. Let's say we're going to physical print and digital. So I'm going to load this into InDesign to make our little brochure. That's going to be printed off and it's going to be both in the reception, so physically, so I need CMYK version, but also it's going to be downloaded from the website, emailed around, it's going to be used as a PDF. what to do then. Do you have two versions, a print version of a magazine and a digital version? No. What tends to happen these days, there'll be purists out there who don't like this method, but for me, in my experience, what you end up doing is just use the RGB document wherever it is. It doesn't matter if it's InDesign and it's going to print, just leave it as RGB and let the printer change it on their side. So that you've got one copy, one PDF that you've made that's got all the great colors in it. It makes life easier for you. And what ends up happening is modern printers, okay, so the ones that are going to physically print and bind your magazine, they have some pretty cool rip software and kind of pre-processing software that actually extracts probably more color from your RGB, and they have a really good conversion process to CMYK, better than what just Photoshop's going to do here. A lot of printers will use more than just cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. They'll have a bunch of extra colors and try and match RGB a little bit more. So I just grab this image, dump it into InDesign or Illustrator into my graphics, and just leave it as RGB. Send it to the printer, make sure they know. Say, hey, I'm just leaving it as RGB. Can you convert it for me? They might come back and say, no, you need to go the traditional route and make sure it's CMYK before it's all in InDesign. But most of the people will just take your RGB, print it off, and it's pretty amazing what they can come up with. Some pretty good matches to this RGB. All right, are you a little bored of RGB CMYK? If you've made it this far, you get gold star. Go draw one on your hand. That is you for the day. You hung out and watched this whole video. As a little surprise, well, it's not much of a surprise, file new. And one thing to note is when you're making a new document, see down here, color mode, you can pick RGB and CMYK before you get started. But if you pick CMYK now, it will always default to CMYK. So just make sure color mode's RGB to get started for pretty much everything, unless you're going to print. And then ask for it. Enough, Dan. Let's get into the next very exciting video about resolution. Super important, just as nerdy. Hi there, it's Real Me back again for a little bit. This particular video is about resolution in Photoshop. What I'm going to do is I'm going to jump between this live headshot stuff and the screen there because it's a little easier to explain when I wave my hands around. So yeah, let's get started. We'll get started with the screen stuff and then we'll come back. Yeah, let's go do that. All right, so let's open up two files. Let's go to File, let's go to Open, and in your exercise files, there's one called Color Modes and Resolution. And I want you to open up these two, Resolution 01 and 02 by Hunter Johnson. Let's click Open. So one is a teeny tiny version and one is a nice big version. So resolution is just another word for quality. Okay, good quality, bad quality, high resolution, low resolution. And another word for resolution is pixels per inch or dots per inch, DPI, PPI. I'm blowing your mind with different words. Let's stick to resolution, high and low quality. So this one here, I'm looking at O2, is low quality. It's because when I zoom in, okay, you'll actually start to see, look, it's actually made up of little squares. So an image is just a collection of colored dots. But from a distance, okay, if I zoom out far enough, it looks like a proper, legit image. And that's true of both good and bad quality. Okay, so I can see the dots quite easily in this low resolution, low quality version. But in O1, it looks like a proper, legit, real life in front of me image. But that's because my brain can't see when I zoom in. Okay, if I zoom in far enough, can you see? It's actually, this one here is just made up of more dots. And my little brain can't tell the difference between real life and like lots of little cubes joined together at a certain resolution. So let's jump out to live head Dan now and let's talk about two kind of example projects. All right, so what we'll do is we'll talk about two kind of like common projects or uses for resolution in Photoshop. We'll do a kind of a web job and a print job. We'll start with the web one because it's probably what you're going to do most often, I'm guessing. So let's say that we've been given a specific size we need for a website. Let's say it's to our WordPress blog, okay, and it has to have a maximum size of 1200 pixels wide, okay, or it's some sort of social media. So Instagram has a maximum image size of 1600 pixels wide, or your Twitter bio needs to be. You see those requirements that says cannot be larger than XYZ, okay, 2000 pixels. So we're going to go and do that now and look at how to force our image to be a specific size for a web project. Let's jump in. So I want to go to image and adjust my image size. Now they may or may not ask for it, but the resolution needs to be at 72. And this little check resample image needs to be turned on. And over here, depending on, they might have asked for centimeters, you can adjust it just as easily in here. I'm using pixels because that's what my Twitter bio asked for. Let's say it's 1600 across. So it's 1600 was the largest size. It's adjusted the height for me proportionally. Awesome. It's 72 dots per inch. I'm clicking OK. It's a lot smaller. Do a file, save as JPEG, and upload that to Twitter or Instagram or Reddit or whatever the site is that needs a specific size. So 72 is a really common resolution. Let's talk about the slightly more complicated print version. Let's jump back out to Real Dan. All right, it's time for a print job. So we've been asked to, say we're a photographer and we're working in Photoshop, getting our image right, but then somebody's asked us for a version of our image for a print job. Okay, and they've asked for a couple of things. You might be given a spec sheet or they might have emailed it to you and they've said, okay, we need your image to be in CMYK, which we looked in the last video, and we need it to be, let's say, 300 DPI. Okay, or they might say PPI. DPI and PPI are interchangeable terms, remember? Okay, dots per inch, pixels per inch, old school, new school, 300 DPI, they're the same. Okay, I say DPI because that's why I learned, but Photoshop calls it PPI. You'll find they're both around. So it's 300 DPI, and they haven't asked for, they just asked for it as big as it can be at 300 DPI. Let's say that's one kind of project. The next project is CMYK, but we need it at a specific size. So it needs to be 18 inches across at 300 DPI. So it's really specific. So let's look at both of those scenarios now in the screencast. All right, so back in here, I'm going to go undo. Okay, to go back to my original image. So I've worked on this image, I've photographed it, it's great. I need to get it to CMYK, which we know how to do in the last video. Great. CMYK, perfect. And now I need it to be 300 DPI or PPI. So go to image, let's go to image size. And what we want to do in this case is we want to turn resample off. Because what ends up happening is, watch this, if I change to 72, so let's say work in inches, so it's 68 inches. So what I need to do is I need to change this from 72, which is the really common web size, to the really common print size, which is 300. Watch what happens to the width and height, 300. It got a whole lot smaller. It went from 68 down to 16. Oh no. Let's jump to Real Dan to explain. All right, so now it's time I need to wave my arms, and I find this is the best way to explain that kind of weird resizing going on. So for a screen or for a website, they want 72 dots per inch, okay? And we look at it on a screen and it looks great. That's all you need, 72 dots in an inch. So let's say I've got an inch, here it is here, there's 72 little cubes in there, okay, all colored dots, and that is my little human brain goes, that looks perfect. Okay, but when it gets to print, they need a lot more dots for a realistic print. If you print stuff at 72, you start to see the dots, just the techniques that you use to go through printing, it just looks bad. So to get past that, to get to that like really good quality, that you pick it up and go, that's a photograph. Okay, you need 300 little dots in that same inch. Okay, so 72 dots per inch, okay, means I've got an inch, there's 72 little dots. If I want 300 in there, what we have to do is, it's the same inch, right, but we have to say, well, I want some more pixels to fit in there. Where do we get them from? So we go, well, there's all these other pixels around, so let's start dragging them, pull, you come in here, you come in here, you come in here, you keep jamming them in there, there's 100 in there now, okay, now there's 200, you keep pulling them, jamming them in, and then eventually you cram 300 into that same inch. The trouble is you have to pull all those pixels out from the rest of the image, the whole image has to resize to come down. So basically you're grabbing all those cubes, just crushing them so they're more dense. Does that help? That's the best way I can explain it. Okay, so that's the trade-off, right, is that 72, great for screen, print, it needs to be about the third of the original size. It's not perfect, but it's about the right kind of ratio. So that's why the physical size gets smaller. So full stop, that's that done. Let's say you remember our second step where we said, so the first step was put it at 300 and just give it to us at the whatever size it ends up being, okay? But let's say that we want it to be an exact size. So we want it to be 300 dots per inch, but we need it to be 20 inches across. And we saw before, right, that it can't be 20, it's 16, 18. But you know, it's not that big. So let's go and work out how to force Photoshop to kind of make it the size we need and the kind of trade-offs for that. So back to screen. All right, so before, remember, well, 72, really big. We changed it to 300, and you're like, oh no, it's heaps smaller. And that's just the size it is. That's the best quality it can be. 300 dpi, it's only going to be 16 inches across. Let's say, I'm just going to turn this on. We did this before, so it's 300, and it's at 68, okay? What's going to end up happening, can you see over here, gives you a preview, see all this goop that appears? Photoshop says, well, I'm just going to generate all these extra pixels. And it tries its best, but there's just too much to do, and you end up with this kind of goopiness. You've probably seen it in images before, okay? It's Photoshop, it's the best thing to try and do it, but the images are not there, so it just starts duplicating pixels willy-nilly, and you end up with this kind of interpolation stuff. So huge jumps like that just don't work. What you can do, though, is let's turn it off. So remember, it's 16 is the largest it can be, but let's say we just need it to be 18, or say, let's say 17, we just need it to be a little bit bigger. Nobody's going to notice. Turn resample on, change it to 17. You see here, it's no better, no worse than it was before, in my opinion. Can I go up to 18? Yeah, probably, I'd still do it. Put update, if they say it needs to be 18 at 300, I'd probably do it, because it was close enough to it. So when you start getting over this, like, when you get past the 10 to 15% increase, you start to see pixels, and it starts to look a little bit bad. The further you get over that, the worse it gets, like we saw before. So this little resample image here, okay, with it off, it will be exactly 72. It's going to expand out to the nice big size, because that's all the internet needs. When I get to 300, it shrinks down. I can turn this on to force it to be a physical size. Making it smaller is perfect. Say they need to be 10 inches. That's great. There's plenty of pixels to go for smaller. But to get bigger, you can go a little bit bigger, but not too much. All right, back to other Dan. All right, I hope that was helpful. If you are like, man, that was really hard. It is really hard. So resolution can be tough. The takeaways, I hope, are web stuff is at 72 dots per inch. You can have it larger. Okay, anything that goes to print is going to be about a third of the size. You just go to image size, make sure resample is off. Okay, type in 300 pixels per inch, and that will give you it's the print size at its very best quality. Okay, if you need to force it to be a size, doesn't really matter if it's web or print. Just turn the resample on. Okay, and with that on, it will force it to be whatever you tell it to be. And if you're going smaller, perfect. If you're going bigger, it's going to start inventing pixels and start. You can go a little bit, but if you go too far, you start seeing all that yucky, goopy pixelation stuff. Yeah, that's enough for resolution. Let's get into some super exciting Photoshop stuff again. Hi there, this section of the course is all about brushes. So it would be rude of me not to mention a tablet, okay, when we're working with brushes, and we'll do that for this video, but then after that, don't worry, if you don't have a tablet like this thing here, okay, it's got a tablet, comes with a little pen, and basically it's a replacement for the mouse, but it allows you to kind of hand gesture draw. So if you don't have one of these, it's fine, okay, with just this video we're gonna cover this in case you do have one or want to get one, but then after that we'll just get into using the mouse with some of the more special effect ink splat type kind of cool brushes. So what is this? It's just a mouse, okay, but obviously I can draw on it instead of using the kind of normal mouse. And what you're looking for is, say you don't have one and you're looking to buy one. My advice is, I've had a few of these over time. Wacom is the name of the brand most popular with it. Okay, so Wacom tablet. They have a few different brands. This one here is called the Intuos Pro. Depends on your budget, right? This one here is expensive enough. US dollars. I can't do the conversions. Bought in New Zealand, live in Europe. US dollars. It's probably about $300, so it's not cheap. But if you're going to invest in one, don't get an eBay cheap knockoff brand I've never heard. This don't work, okay? Because you need something called I'm not even sure. Like it's a 60 pen. That's what Wacom call it. And basically what it does is it knows the angle that your pen is at, which is cool when you're using, like, you tell it to be a crayon, and it knows which edge of the crayon it's on. Also it knows the pressure. Also, if you flip it around, you can turn some drawing, okay, and flip it around, and the back part of it is the eraser. There's some just cool stuff. Also, what you're not going to be able to see probably is there's some buttons. And those come preset for Photoshop, and like you can wave your finger around that one and it does the brush size, and undo is my top key, and like there's some cool shortcuts you can do with these Wacom tablets. So if you want one, you don't need one to be a Photoshop designer, but if you're going to be doing digital illustration, man, you'll see the difference in the next little section about me drawing with my mouse and drawing with this. I love it. Do I use it every day? I put it out here on my desk, especially in these like videos to make it look like I'm like hardcore digital designer, but I find them, I don't like them for normal mouse operations. I use just my regular mouse or the trackpad. Okay, but for when I'm doing retouching or if I'm doing some drawings, that I definitely use that. Okay, so you can just have both of them on your desk. That one's wireless, which is really cool as well. One of the perks of that one. So you can kind of have it up on your knee, sketching away, and see it on the screen. It's a little bit of a weird disconnect, but yeah, super cool. The Bamboos are the cheaper versions of these, and they are cool. They just don't come with all the extra buttons and stuff. So definitely Bamboo would be the entry level. Then you get the Intuos Pro, and then you get to the Cintiq. The Cintiq you need to sell when your kid needs to get one. So they're expensive. They're in like $2,000 kind of thing, because basically the screen you draw on, so you can actually see what you're doing. So if you're super keen and you got the cash, do that. I probably still wouldn't want one. I like that one. I like the way I'm okay with the disconnect between the screen. I'm now rambling. Let's go actually see what it does and why it's so awesome and why you may or may not need a Wacom tablet. Let's jump in. All right, one more thing. This is just an introduction to the Wacom tablet. It's not going to be like a hardcore how to get the best out of it. It's just going to be giving you the basics in case you do have one, but not like every single thing, advanced feature of the Wacom tablet. It's my asterisks. All right, now let's jump in. All right, first up, let's go to File. Let's go to Open. And in 14 brushes, open up brush 01. Obviously, you can use any image you like. But if you are using any image, I'll zoom a little bit, just make sure you're working on its own layer. We don't want to destroy the background. So I'm going to name it. I'm calling it drawing. So to get started, we need a couple of things. We need the brush tool, which is this guy here underneath the spot healing brush. We need to pick a foreground color. So click on this color here, slide through this, decide on the color that you want to use. Click OK. And at the top here, drop this down. So depending on the version of Photoshop you're using, if it's like 2017 or before, you probably just got a bunch of icons you can click through. You'll be able to work out which is which. It shouldn't be a hard change. What they've done in 2018 and 19 is they've created these awesome like little groups: general brushes, dry media, wet brushes. So we're going to start with just these first two, and we'll get into some other videos where we look at more special effect brushes. So to start with, under general brushes, I'm going to pick this one here called Hard and Round. And we'll show you the difference between a Wacom tablet and a regular mouse. So on the side here, I am going to click hold and draw a D for my name, Dan. Okay, now let's undo that. That was exceptionally bad. I'm bad with my mouse. It's not getting any better. You can play around with smoothing to try and help make your mouse feel a bit better, but I guess I just want to show you the difference between my drawing when I'm working with my mouse. I'm pretty good with my mouse, and that's as good as I got. And let's switch to my Wacom tablet. And all I'm doing is picking up the pen. You don't need to switch them. You just start using the Wacom tablet, and they start working. So I'm going to draw the Wacom, but what we're going to use is one of the special Wacom brushes. Basically anything that says pressure. See that? You can kind of tell they have like pointy ends. Okay, so it has a variable pressure rating. And that's what gives the Wacom tablet its magic. Okay, so I'm going to draw an A, and you can see instantly things are smoother because I'm just better at drawing with a pencil. And you can start to see the ends here. They're just nicer. There's like pressure sensitivity, so there's an end and a beginning, and it's really sensitive. Watch this. I'm just going to lightly touch it. Okay, you push really hard and get a big blob, or just touchy touch. Get a nice little bit. Cool. So pressure sensitivity is the big thing with the Wacom tablet. But when you tie it together with some of the other brushes, especially the new version, so general brushes, pretty basic. It's the dry media brushes we're going to use. Like these ones here, Kyle Webster was like, well, he still exists, but he was like freelance. He was the man to go to buy brushes from Photoshop. Like if you wanted brushes, the built-in ones weren't very good. The ones that he made were amazing. And now he works for Adobe. So he's now bundled them, or at least Adobe and him have bundled them in here for us to use straight out of the box. That's so good. I'm not going to go through them all, obviously, but let's just start with one of them, and let's draw my in. I'm actually going to make the brush size a lot bigger. just out of the box, they just look very realistic. Not sure what I'm drawing. I'm drawing it in. That's what I'm trying to draw. Okay, but they are pressure sensitive, so I can push hard and they get thicker. Okay, and fill out more, and then I can push really lightly and they can taper off. They're just amazing. Love them. So I'm undoing and going a step backwards. So before we go any further, I do want to mention the undo. So by default, yours is set to 50 undos. And when you're drawing, hand drawing, you can burn through 100 like little brush strokes quite quickly. So you can go and change it on a Mac. You go down to Photoshop, CC, Preferences, and we're going to go to this one called Performance. On a PC, it's in a slightly different place. It's under Edit. All the way down the bottom here is Preferences, and you're going to end up at the same place. You want to go to Performance. I've already cranked mine up to 100. By default, it's 50. If you're using a really earlier version, it's lower, 25 or something. I like 100. Gives me a little bit of undos to go backwards. But know that the higher this is, the potentially more stressed out your computer can be. I've got a pretty new MacBook Pro. You might be using a really fancy PC. Okay, so you can go a little higher. But no, if you go up to 1,000, it's going to eventually die because it's trying to remember too many things. So crank it up to 100. All right, so that's going to be it for the basics. It's looking for pressure sensitivity, changing brush size. What I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of sketch that thing like you saw at the beginning. I'm going to use, I like this one here, Pastel Palooza. Such a good name. Okay, in terms of the size, that's probably too thick. I'm going to go down to something smaller. I'm just going to sketch out my little N. You can hang around with me. I'm just going to start it, okay? And then just building it up, pushing harder, pushing not as hard. But you can skip on now. And what I'll do is I'll get the editor to speed this up so it's not as painful. You can watch it in fast forward mode. All right, go. All right, before you go, I was just like, Wacom tablet's cool because you can kind of move it around at different angles. I'm not finished. I'm not even sure what I'm going to be doing. I'm just drawing now. But I wanted to show you one little tip is, like, I can draw up and down. Like, for some reason, that line, the arc of my hand, I can do that line really nicely up and down. Okay, but trying to draw up and this way, it's pretty kind of, I find it really difficult. So you can either turn your Wacom upside down. Okay, just kind of, you can't see this, but I'm just moving my Wacom upside down so you can kind of change the angle. What's really handy though as well is if you're kind of in a fixed desk, I'm in a kind of a small desk here. So what you can do is there's this little trick. Click and hold down the hand tool. There's a rotate view tool, a little bit advanced. But if you click, hold and drag it around, you can see I can drag this, get it into the right position, go back to my brush tool. And remember, I'm a lot better at that kind of motion, the down to up, the up to down. Okay, and I can toggle it around again and just kind of work my way around this line. Make sure I switch to the brush tool. I haven't changed that kind of permanent rotation. It's just so I can kind of move around. When you are finished, just hit escape on your keyboard, kind of flicks it back around to its original kind of direction, and you can keep toggling between those two things. If you're fancy, you can set that up as a shortcut on your Wacom tablet, but that's kind of out of the scope of this class, which I do. Okay, I've got a little dial here on this tablet, which I can set the shortcuts on it using the Wacom software that I downloaded for my Mac from the Wacom website. You can start matching shortcuts with keys on your Wacom tablet. I'm just putting a double line around. All right, let's speed. There's no speeding it up because I'm done, because I don't even know what I'm doing. Just drawing it in with a double line. One thing you might do before you go, I keep adding little maybes at the end. We've worked on this drawing layer, and it's just normal, sitting over the top. What you might find for a bit of realism, blending modes. We're using loads. Multiply in this case is probably going to work. Okay, starts interacting with the background a little bit, especially here. It looks like something chalked on the wall. Terrible drawing. I'm embarrassed. Look at that. Can I draw better? A little bit. You guys can't be watching, and I need to have like 100 goes at it. All right, that's the introduction to the Wacom tablet, and we'll jump into the next video where we look at some more of the special effects with brushes, the smoke stuff, and ink splats and that type of thing, rather than just hand drawing. All right, on to the next video. Hi there, this video we're going to explore brushes. We're going to look at this drip brush plus this kind of like scratching one in the background. We're going to take this image and add all these kind of effects to it. All right, let's get in there and learn how to do this now in Photoshop. All right, first things first, let's go to File, let's go to Open. And in your exercise files under 14 brushes, we're going to use brush 02. Thank you, Hunter Johnson. Click OK. Next thing to do is I want to draw that kind of splat that comes out of the shoe. So I'm going to make sure it's on its own layer. This is going to be my red splat one. I need to pick the brush that I want to use. So under my brushes, I'm going to go up the top here, and we're going to start looking at these special effects brushes. So you might have to twirl that up, okay, and find special effects. And I'm going to use, they're all, experiment with them all, they're all real cool. I'm going to use this first one here, Splatter Bot Tilt. And in terms of the size, hovering out here, you can kind of see a preview of it. Unless your caps lock is on. Caps lock will be target, turn your caps lock off on your keyboard, and it goes back to the splat. So brush size, I'm going to get it down quite small. See me? Yeah. Okay, in terms of the color, what I'd like to do is match the same color as the shoe. So depending on, you might be black and white like this. What you can do is you can go to the eyedropper tool and say, see this little bottom left of it, it's the little to be top of it, well, to be bottom left. Click on that and you can see it's changed my foreground color to match the shoe. Back to my brush tool. And what I'm going to do is click, hold, and kind of drag it off to make it look like it's spraying out. It looks quite gore. Kind of cool, I like it. So I'm clicking and dragging. You can click a few times in a little bit of a circle to kind of try and get it there. Change the brush size, gone smaller. I can go bigger. Okay, so if I go really big, I like to just have one or two. That's probably enough, yeah. Okay, and you get what I'm trying to do. Here you go. Cool, so we've got our kind of ink coming out of there. Let's go a little bit further, and what we're going to do is we're going to do some type exploding like you saw. Okay, so I'm going to click OK, I'm going to go back to my move tool, it's freaking out, I'm going to go to my type tool, I'm going to click once, I'm going to type in Remix. That font is teeny tiny, I'm going to grab it, drag it up. Clicking, holding the icon and dragging is the easiest way, well, one of the easy ways. Now I'm going to use Remachine. Remember we used this earlier on, we installed it in a previous video. You can download it free online for personal use. If you want to use it commercially, Remachine, you've got to go and pay for. Okay, so I'm going to drag it, make it bigger. I'm going to make the font over here white, nothing special. What I'm not going to do is I'm not going to actually explode it on this layer, I'm just going to have another layer just above it. So new layer, this one here is going to be white splat. We'll go a little bit further with this one. So we'll do exactly what we did before. I'm going to grab my brush tool. I'm going to make sure I could use my eyedropper tool to pick the white. We could just click on this thing, toggle between these two. Okay, depends. Whatever you do, we want white as the foreground. Grab the brush tool. And in terms of the size, I'm going to practice. That's probably a little big. So we're on our own layer, so we can turn it off later on. So I'm going to try and kind of get this to look like it's spraying out. That's my goal anyway. Little loop at the end there. Try and get it all. I'm going to play with the brush size now, make it a little bit bigger. Undo. Man, it's hard to do random. Luckily, this brush is amazing, right? Thank you, Kyle Webster. You are awesome. Cool. We're going to do a couple of big ones, and I'll show you a couple of little tricks that I like to do. Okay, so maybe too big. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make another layer. Okay, and this is going to be white out of focus. Kind of faking depth of field. So I'm going to make a nice big brush and have one, maybe two of them, just a couple of them around. What I'd like to do is just blur this layer. So with that layer selected, go to filter, blur, I'm going to use Gaussian blur. And just to maybe lower it down a little bit. You see what I mean? Like they're just a little bit out of focus. Preview on, they're kind of stuck against the glass, whereas that looks like they're kind of coming right at you. You might like them. Just Okay, I'm going to do the same for the red stuff. So I'm going to make a red splat that is red out. Oh, fuck it. If you're asking whether I name my layers this well all the time, I do not. I normally have layer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's bad practice. Okay, so my brush, nice big brush. I'm going to have, because it's random, there's no brushes, no two brushes are the same, which is really cool. So I'm going to go that, maybe one more, there we go. And I want it above the text. But I also want to go to filter, blur, Gaussian blur, find a blur that works for me, click OK. And now we're getting that stuff where it feels like it's in front of the text, it's exploding out, I can still move it. Because it's on its own layer. Cool. All right, so that's the splatter brush. Love the splatter brush. We're going to look at one more brush before we go. It's going to be, we can go through every single brush, and then I guess there's going to be some experimentation you need to do. I'm going to show you one more brush because it's a little bit fancy and it works a little bit differently than just regular paint brushes like these. So for this to work, we are going to create a new layer. Okay, we're going to call this one Scratch. And we're going to go to the brush tool, we're going to drop this down, and I'm going to go into this one here called Concept Brushes, Scratch Blend. Okay, so the difference is, can you see that's a brush, that's a brush. See these ones here that have the little finger? That's actually using something called the smudge tool. They're in the brushes because they make sense in here, but they're actually a completely separate tool. So if I click back out here, you can see we're not on my paintbrush anymore. We're on this smudge brush. Same as smudge brush, it's called the smudge tool. And I'll show you that because there's a few brushes, like the mixer brush, and there's a bunch of other ones. It doesn't really matter. Find them in that drop down, it'll switch to them, and you might have to play around with the effect. But what we want to do is, I'm going to turn all these layers off. I'm clicking on holding and dragging across the eyes. I'm not sure if you know you can do that. You can do one individually, or just click and hold and drag them. Because what I want to do is, I'm going to maybe have it just a scratch layer, just left background. But for this to work, you've got to turn all the other layers off. And brush size, mine's 175. I'm going to click once to show you kind of what it does. It's a little hard to see, I guess. It's a little hard to see because it's not working at all. I pretend I knew what I was doing there. It's this one here, it needs to be on. Sample all layers. So it's going to go through my empty layer and see the stuff in the background. Now watch if I click. Okay, it's kind of this way that kind of moves things around, smudges them. It's a really quite cool effect. Now don't be tempted to click, hold, and drag because it works. You can see that it's kind of smudged it, but it can freak your machine out. So I like to do it in smaller bits and turn the strength down a little bit. Okay, so clicking in little pieces. There we go. Clicking once, clicking twice, clicking little drags. It's a little bit hard for the computer to catch up. It'll depend on the quality of your image. But you can quite see it's quite cool, right? It looks like it's been on a sheet of glass or something's been upside down jiggling in the car. Or the front of your cell phone if you don't look after it. Okay, it's just a cool effect that I want to use. I'm going to turn all these guys back on afterwards. It's this kind of grungy remix thing that I thought might look cool. It's okay, but there are lots of brushes to play around with. What I'll do in the next video is I'll show you how to find brushes online and how to install them, and we'll do some cool stuff with drips. I will see you in the next video. Hi there, this class project is more of an experiment. I'm not looking for amazing final finished something or other. I want you to just explore the different brushes. Drop questions if you've got questions about the brushes, because there are so many in there. I guess I can make 100 videos on the different brushes, but for this essentials course, we're gonna let you experiment. Now, in your exercise files, there's one called O3. That'll be your experiment file. Thank you, Florian. In your class projects file, there is, you don't have to use that image, you could use your own, okay? But I want you to just play around. Okay, make sure you're doing everything on its own layer, so you can turn it back, turn it off, not destroying the bottom layer. Experiment with the different brushes and potentially type as well. And yeah, and then share them with me. I love to see what you do here in the assignments or on social media. Instagram's probably best, and I am bring your own laptop. You know that already though. All right, next video. Once you've done your homework, I'll wait here. Hi there, this video is all about drippy brushes. We're going to show you how to download them and install them and get them working, and then we're going to take our name and group it. All right, let's go and work out how to do that now in Photoshop. All right, so first thing is we're going to make a new document. Let's go to File, New. I'm going to make mine 2,000 pixels across and 1,500 high. And if you've been following along in this tutorial, you probably want to turn upwards off now. Okay, we don't need them for this particular exercise, and they just add a little extra complexity that we don't need. Cool. So to install other brushes, the drips aren't built in, so we're going to learn two things. We're going to show you how to use the drip brush, but also how to go and find and install brushes. So to do it, you need to open up the brushes panel. It's under Window, go to Brushes. So these are the ones that are installed in this particular version of Photoshop. Yours might be slightly different. You might have a future version. But we've gone through the brushes and we haven't found the one we want. So there are two places to go. Photoshop themselves or Adobe themselves have an amazing amount of brushes you can install. Okay, so you go to this little flyout menu here, click on that, go to the one that says Get More Brushes, and this website will open. And if you're like me, your internet's running super slow, so only half the images have loaded. But you get an idea, right, of the different kinds of brushes. Okay, some amazing ones. These are Kyle's ones, again, Kyle Webster. Such cool brushes. Okay, and you can download them. So this mega pack here is, I think, all of them, but it's like 400 megabytes. It's really big. So you could just decide on the ones you want and download them individually. Now, it doesn't matter whether you get them from here or you do a search through Google and say Photoshop brushes and go through the 1,000,001 blog posts showing you where to get them. Most of them are free. The really good ones aren't. And if you were like me, what you did is you used to go to Kyle's website and buy them. Now they're free as part of your Creative Cloud membership, which is super cool. Anyway, you get them, they'll download, and I've given you some in your 14 brushes folder. Okay, just a couple that I've downloaded. They were free ones. You can see they've got the extension ABR, Adobe Brush. Now, the easiest way to install them is just to have Photoshop open and double click on them. So I'll show you what happens in Photoshop. So there's these 4 groups here. You can go the long way and go to this option and say import brushes. It doesn't matter. I just prefer to double click on them. So let's double click on the drip brush. And magically, they appear in here. And you can see there's a bunch of drips. Now, by default, yours are probably very small, and they're probably just long streaks. And those streaks are really hard to see what kind of brush they are. So you can change it in this little flyout menu here. Yours is probably set to brush stroke, okay, which shows this kind of like line here. What I like to do is turn the stroke off and the brush tip on, so that you can see them just as little brushes. Then I'm going to raise this little icon up so I can see them nice and big. And that's how to install a brush. Okay, so let's, first of all, I'm going to color the background. So background color, I'm going to use that peach that I've been using. I'm going to go to, so I picked it as my foreground color. I'm going to go to Edit, Fill. I'm going to fill with my foreground color. So my background is this. I'm going to make a new layer for that big green drip that we had. And I'm going to double click my foreground color and find that kind of sminty, greeny, colorish. Bit warmer. Bit warmer. All right, that's kind of close. We might have to adjust it afterwards. So now I'm going to grab my brush tool. I'm going to open up my brushes panel. You can actually do it from up here now. Okay, you will see there's the special brushes and the drips brush. You can either use this or this one over here. Doesn't matter. I'm going to use the drips brush and I'm going to pick on, not sure, scroll down. Can't remember which one I picked when I was doing it. Ah, that one there. Sampled brush 5. Okay. I've got my opacity and my flow up to 100%. I'm going to click once and there we've got my drip brush. I'm going to undo. I'm going to make it a bit bigger. By a bit bigger, I mean colossal, because I want to cover the whole background. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. Sometimes you just need to be back a bit further to see how big the brush is getting. And it's good for me. Now you find some of these brushes, this one's quite opaque, so you can see the way through it. Let's try one of the other brushes in this one. See, these ones are quite translucent. If I click once, they're quite faded out. So you might have to click to build it up to the level that you want. So I just keep clicking the mouse. So I'm going to go undo, because I want that one back. All right, brush size is gone again. Can't remember how big I had it. Bum, bum, bum. Very big, 2,400. It'll depend on the image that the original size you made the document. And that's how to use drip brushes. What I'm going to do now is add some text and mix it with some type. Nothing exciting is going to happen, I promise. Okay, so I'm going to type my name. Dan's on its own layer. I'm going to pick a font color. I'm just going to zoom now because I'm not doing anything exciting. Change the font size, Command T on Mac, Control T on PC. I want the drip kind of hanging over the D like you saw at the beginning. I'm going to do it on its own layer. Should name it, but I'm being a rebel today. I'm going to grab my brush tool and I'm going to find a brush that works. I don't think all drip brushes are created equal. I found this one after a little bit of searching. Okay, but you might find a bunch of other ones that are just as good or better. I'm going to use this one here. It's kind of cool. And I'm going to pick an appropriate brush size. Get rid of him. Okay, got my green. You can see, I'll zoom in for you. Okay, so you can see I'm just kind of lining that up, so it looks like it's kind of coming over the edge there. Now this one here needs like a couple of clicks. It needs a bloop, bloop, bloop to fill it up. Depending on the look, I'm going for this kind of very GIF style, super hard contrast colors thing. And that's it. You can keep adding drips to bits. You might add masks to certain parts to get rid of chunks you don't like. And what I'm going to do is on my name, I'm going to add a drop shadow. I don't know, I feel like I need it. That's probably a little bit too much. Back it off. Back you down. Back you down. There we go. Kind of cool. Click OK. Oh yeah, drop shadow's really done. And that's going to be us. Let's get into the next video where I set a little bit of a project. I'll see you there. How are you doing? It is assignment time. I do wonder who watches these videos all the way through, and you're one of them. I promise you, you're one of the few, and you're going to be one of the people who get really good at Photoshop. So this class assignment is going to practice our skills. I want you to take the skills we learned in the last video and just switch it out for your own colors and your own name. It's a nice simple one. You can see the difference between this one and the last one is I added some more goop on top of my name. You don't have to, okay? But I added some kind of like, there was some behind there and a little bit in front as well. That's something you might take into consideration. All right, it is in your class projects, okay, Word document. That's in the exercise files if you want a bit more detail, but create your own document and just, yeah, go to town with the drips, pick a font and pick colors and share it with me. Let's get on to the next video. It's pretty exciting. We're going to do some cool smoke brushes and masks and things. It's pretty cool. I'll see you there. Hi there, this video is going to take brushes just a little bit further along and we're going to use brushes as an actual mask, okay, to mask through this galaxy. We've got a little bit of realism with some black smoke, okay, we're going to use cool smoke brushes like that. Let's learn how to install them and use them as a mask in Photoshop. Let's open up our files. Let's go to File and Open, and let's go to our exercise files in brushes, and there's going to be two. There's going to be brushing 04 and 05, so open up both of those for me. So we've got our galaxy and we've got our man sitting on the bench. So the difference between this one and the last one is we're going to be using masks as well as the brushes. So first up we need to install our brushes. So with Photoshop open, go to your exercise files. And then here there's one called Smoke Brush. You can see it's a lot bigger in terms of file size. Double click it. Hopefully now in your window under brushes, where are your brushes, you've got, I'm going to scroll up, twirl up, drips, there's Smoke Brush, twirl them down. So those are the ones we're going to be using. So the way this works is we're going to grab all of this. So brush 05, grab our move tool, click hold, drag, 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 holding down, let go. And I'm just going to, it's roughly the right size already, so I don't need to transform it. That's going to work for me. And what we want to do is we're going to add a layer mask. We did this earlier on in the course. I'll show you kind of the basics first before we do the smoke. So I'm going to add a layer mask to it and nothing happens. Okay, white shows everything through. So if I grab my brush tool and I pick not the drippy brush, just the regular general brushes, I'll use this first one here. Remember we did the before and after? So black's my foreground color. And we kind of did that. We painted half of it in and half of it out. So remember black, when I'm painting on the mask, hides things. And I'm going to keep going until I've covered the whole thing. To bring it back, I use the white brush. So I can toggle these, and instead of using this big ugly brush, okay, I'm going to use the smoke brush to bring it back. And that's the trick. So we're using the brush to paint on the mask to show the galaxy through. So I'm going to go to my brushes panel, and I'm going to find my smoke brushes and pick a starting one. This one here is probably the best one to get started with, 7. Okay, the brushes will probably be way too big. Click, click. Yeah, it's way too big for what I want, so I'm going to lower the size. I'm using white. I'm making sure I'm working on my mask, not the image. I'm working on this mask. And I'm just going to have a click once. It's not a very sophisticated tool, so if you do it twice, they're going to start looking like they repeat. Okay, so what I like to do is under brushes, there's brush settings. It's just the icon above it. You can start messing around with the rotation, so it just means when you do it again, it looks a little bit more random. If you've bought a brush or found a little bit more sophisticated one, you might find something a little bit better than the one that I found for free. Go back to brushes, I'm going to find something else. I'll try this one here. It's going the wrong way. So in brush settings again, you can go through and say flip X or Y, so it's coming out the other way. Now, if it's got a target as well, it means that the brush is way too big and I can't see it. So I'm going to use my square brackets to make it smaller. And there we go. I want it to kind of look like it's coming out of his head. That's kind of cool. Pick my brushes. That one as well. It's too big. Use my square brackets next to my P key. Oh yeah. And I want a bit more of a filler in the middle here. So what I might do is actually just go back to a regular brush. So general, soft round, and still using white. I'm just going to fill in some of this kind of middle part just to give it a bit of guts. Now it looks okay. What I want to do though is get a bit of an effect so it looks like his, that interaction here through his head's not great, just appears. So what I'm going to do is create a new layer and just use a straight out black brush because it's a silhouette. It's going to work. So brush tool, I'm going to go to my brushes, not these general ones, my smoke brush. And just like before, I'm going to find one that I like. Something a little bit different that I haven't used yet. I'll use that one. And I'm not working on a mask this time. I'm actually just going to use a straight out black. Okay, so pick black for your foreground color, pick an appropriate brush size. You'll see what I mean in a minute. So click on his head. I might turn down the opacity a little bit as well. It's maybe coming out through a little strong. Brush there, I'm going to use a different one. Maybe this one. Yeah, looks cool. Brush settings, play with the rotation. Now I'm just messing about because that's the thing I wanted to do, right? I'm just now going to go through and see if I can make it look a little realistic as a galaxy coming out of somebody's head would be. Cool. Getting there. That's kind of what I was looking for. Kind of. All right, so we use the brush as a mask. We also used it just as a straight out brush. And because they're on their own layers, we can go through and kind of either delete the mask and start again or build it up or lower the opacity. And that is how to do the kind of smoke galaxy coming out of my brain effect in Adobe Photoshop. All right, let's get into the next video. Hi there, this class project, I've given you a couple of example files just to practice what we learned in the last video. So using the exact same techniques, can you open up in your exercise files, so 14 brushes, open up 05 and 06, and just copy what we did in that first tutorial. We dragged the galaxy on, masked it out, and then masked it back in using some of those smoke brushes. You don't have to use smoke brushes. You might go and find your own brushes to use. I'm sure there's some better smoke brushes there somewhere. Once you're finished, I'd love for you to share what you did. I haven't done this one myself, so I'd like to see what you end up doing. She looks like a very empowered woman doing some empowering galaxy style stuff. You don't even have to use the galaxy or this particular image. It works easy with the silhouette though. If you can find another silhouette image, it does make life a lot easier for this tutorial. But if like me, you go and find your own silhouette, you have to spend the first 2 minutes trying to work out how to spell silhouette. I think Google Did You Mean could help me with this one. Right, enough about my spelling. Let's get on to the homework, and then once you're finished, share it with me, and I will see you in the next video. Hi there, this video we're going to create the cast kind of long shadow that we see very popular in UI design at the moment. Google used it for a long time. Normally this is where I say it's super easy, but it's not. It's super manual labor. I'll show you why now. All right, to get started, we're going to use just a new document, file new. We're going to make this one smallish. We're going to make it 1000 by 1000 pixels. And we're going to click create. I'm going to pick a background color just from my swatches up here. You can mix any color you like. So I picked it and I'm going to go to edit. I'm going to go to fill. And because I've got my background layer and I've got foreground color selected, let's click OK. All right, so we're going to bring in some, we've used it earlier on. We're going to go file, place embedded because it's vector stuff from Illustrator. Anything from Illustrator, use the file place embedded. It retains all its coordinates and math and vectorness. You can just open it and copy and paste it, but that's not true smart object goodness. So in your exercise files, there's one in here called 15 shadows. Open that up, and we're going to use shoe.ai. That's Adobe Illustrator. You can do it with anything. We're going to do it with this image and click OK. You could do it with anything, like it doesn't have to be a shoe. It can be text. Okay, I shrunk it down a little bit and hit return. I'm a little high there. So first up, we need to select the shoe. We're going to use our quick selection tool, and I'm just going to kind of drag around, grab all this stuff. You could select the background and invert it. That would be faster. But there we go. It's a nice easy selection because it is such a clean and crisp image. Now it's time for the confession. Okay, now I can't find or think of a better way than doing this. This is a little bit manual labor, a little bit. If though you're watching this and you're like, hey, why doesn't he just do it this way? I'd love to know. I can't find it. I can't figure it out. This way it works, it's fine, but there's a little bit of mashing of keys, which is fine. So we're going to create a new layer. We're going to call it shadow. Shadow. And I'm going to fill it with black. So I'm going to go to edit. Let's fill it with black. For contents, I'm going to pick black, click OK. And I'm going to go to select, deselect. Okay, so this is phase one. I'm going to put it just underneath my shoe, and I'm going to now start the button mashing. So on a PC, hold down your Alt key on your keyboard. If you're on a Mac, look down and grab your Option key, and just make sure you're on the Move tool. It won't work otherwise. So you ready for keyboard mashing? Down arrow, right arrow, down arrow, right arrow, down arrow, right arrow. You can start to see it's coming out like a drop shadow. What it's really doing is it's actually just duplicating the layer that we had selected every time because we're holding down that special key, which is Option on a Mac or on a PC. Don't worry, we're going to have like 1 billion layers when we're finished. So keep holding the key down. Can't remember what was the last thing I did. Was it down or across? Probably across. So down, across, down, across, down, across, down, across, down, across, down, across. Yes, you're going to go mad. So what I'll do is I'll get us to speed it up, and I'm going to go down, across, down, across, down, across, loads of times. Ready? Go. All right, I'm back. Vagabond of that. I'm going to show you a little trick to speed it up. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this top one. I'm going to scroll all the way down to the bottom to my first shadow. There he is there. Hold shift and click this last one. And then I'm going to right click any of them and say, merge these layers, please. So now they're at least one chunk. So now what I can do is I can duplicate it. Not worried about the layer names. Got two of them, and I can drag it out and kind of use my arrow keys to tap it into position. So I'm kind of cheating if you know. I'm doubling down. Cool. So I'm going to select both of these now. Merge layers. Same thing again. I'm going to duplicate and use my little shortcut, drag it down to my little turned up page, and then get my arrow keys and line it up. Probably just need a couple more. So I'm starting to use shortcuts now. Okay, the shortcut to merge layers is, I'll tell you in a second. Got lined up. Select both of them. It is Command E on a Mac, Control E on a PC. Should be the last one. Duplicate it. You're like, this is painful, Dan. There's got to be a better way. I wish there probably is. I just can't work it out, and I can't find anybody else that knows. You could be my savior, and I can re-record this video. Okay, so now I've joined them all up. I've got this long shadow. I'm just going to lower the opacity of it down to look more like that kind of vector stretched out logo. You're like, why didn't I just draw lines off it and fill it with the pen tool? I guess pen tool's a bit out of the scope of this intro course, but if you are a pen tool master, you can do it. The only trouble with it is when you have like internal compound shapes. It's hard to know what to do there. I find this technique just works good every time for that kind of long cast Google shadow. All right, that is it for downing and writing 1 zillion times. Sorry for that. Let's get on to the next video where there's less manual labor. Hi there, this video we're going to revisit this girl here where we did the terrible drop shadow, and we're going to do a slightly less terrible drop shadow in the grass. Same with this text here, we're going to type it out, and can you see the drop shadow cast in the bottom here? There's a cool little trick for creating shadows like this. Let's learn how to do it now in Photoshop. First things first, we're going to go back in time. We're going to go to File, Open. We're going to go to our 15 shadows, and we're going to open up Cast Shadows 01.psd. Remember this, we did way back when, and we faked the shadow, and it was okay using the burn tool. I'm going to show you a different, probably more realistic way. So what we're going to do first up is we're going to click on the shadow layer and delete it. Goodbye. With the model layer selected, we're going to add a drop shadow to him. So we're going to go to Effects, we're going to go to Drop Shadow, and we're going to add a drop shadow. What kind? I'm just kind of guessing here. I'm getting the opacity up a little higher. Distance, not too worried about that. Size-wise, how blurry? Blurry enough for me. So you can copy my settings or just adjust. You'll see we can mess around with this quite a bit afterwards, so we're not particularly worried about the exact settings here. We're going to click OK, and this is the bit that people don't know you can do. You can actually right-click the word drop shadow, and you can go to this one that says Create Layer. The reason you don't know is because that's a ridiculous name for it. Create Layer. What it does is there's a warning, and what it does is it separates that drop shadow. Nothing's changed here except the drop shadow now on its own layer. The cool thing about that is I can move it around. I could kind of do that with the effect, but what I can do now is we can start pull together some of the effects that we learned earlier. Okay, so I'm going to put it just underneath here. Then I'm going to go to Edit, Transform, and I'm going to use this one that says Distort. And I'm going to grab the top one and flip it upside down. So there's the top middle. I'm just going to flip it over, grab anywhere but the crosshairs in the middle. I'm just going to drag it up so it looks like she's underneath. Now, depending on what you want to do with the drop shadow, it's a little hard to see on screen because there's grass in the background. So what I'll do is I'll just disable the background. I can't do it at the moment. Okay, so I'm going to hit return on my keyboard so that you can see it. So hit return, I'm turning the background off. I've still got the shadow layer selected. I'm going to go back to that tool, transform, so that you can see a little bit better. Go to distort. What I'm going to do is grab the top one and maybe tuck it in there. So it looks like, it depends on where your shadow's been cast from. Okay, I can kind of like drag these out. Often there's a kind of a spread. Grab the middle one as well. And it's up to you kind of how deep you want it to be. It will depend on the image underneath. But that's going to work for me. Turn it on. And because this is automatically using multiply, it's going to work okay. I'm going to turn the opacity down a little bit to make it more believable. And we'll double back to this once we've learned a few other extra skills to maybe fade out some of this top stuff. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do that type exercise you saw at the front. Let's go to File, Open. We're going to open up Cast Shadows 02. Click Open. I'm going to grab my type tool. I'm going to click once. I've got a giant text. You type your name. I'll type mine. Well, we're using Scott because that's the fake brand that we'll be making. Font type. I'm using my favorite Museo Sans, and I'm going to make the font size not so ginormous. 50. I'm going to even spell the name right. It's my last name. I'm going to grab my Move tool, and instead of trying to guess font sizes, I like to use Command T on a Mac, Control T on a PC, hold Shift on the corners to get it kind of the right size that I want. Alrighty, hit return. The font color is going to be white. It's the exact same principles we just did, but we'll add a little bit of extra. So with Scott selected, I'm going to grab my FX, grab drop shadow. Not too worried about it. I'm just going to leave it like it was before. Click OK, because what I want to do, remember, right click drop shadow, hit the cryptic name, create layer. Don't worry about the error, and make sure I'm working on this bottom layer here. called drop shadow, move it around so it's just underneath, and then go to my edit, transform, and distort again. Okay, I'm going to drag it down. And I want it to be like sitting right there, and I want it to flare out, because I've picked an image that had a really clear sun in it, whereas the last image doesn't, so it still looks a little fake. This one here, I'm trying to mimic the sun rays that are streaming out of it. I want to nestle in there nicely and hit return. So I could play around with the opacity to try and make it sit in a bit nicer. Okay, and what I might do is multiply works, but let's try some of the other ones just to see what it looks like. So remember the shortcut, I have to be on my move tool, I have to hold down shift on my keyboard and tap the plus key on my keyboard. The plus that's up the top there next to the numbers. Okay, and I'm just going to cycle through until I find something that I like. See, I'm liking something like this, like overlays, working a little bit nicer than multiply, quite like it. And just to add a little bit more to it, I'm going to add a layer mask. We've done this a few times now, we're kind of doubling down and practicing. And because it's white, it's not doing anything, I'm going to grab my brush. I'm not going to use one of my smoke brushes, I'm going to go to general. Okay, and I'm going to use just the soft round one. Size-wise, it's really big. What is that? It's going to be something appropriate. Actually, that was a perfect size. My caps lock was on. Okay, and if I use black, so remember white shows everything through, but if I paint with black on it, I can start removing parts. So I click once on there, click once on there, click once on there. What I might do is turn the opacity down a little bit. So I'm going to undo those guys, undo, and just turn the opacity down to something quite light. Just build it up slowly, 30%, clicking and dragging across the bottom, clicking and dragging, clicking and dragging, clicking and dragging. See, it's just kind of starting to nestle in there a little bit better. Is it believable? It's text on grass. Probably more believable than that one. We do the same thing though. With this drop shadow selected, I'm going to go to my move tool and play around with my layer modes until I find something more believable. So overlay worked in the last one. I'm going to crank up the opacity, and with the layer selected, layer mode, brush tool, slightly smaller brush. And I'm just going to work out so it's not so clear. It's a little bit less hardcore. Is it better? It's definitely better. Is it photorealistic? It is not. But we've learned some cool new tricks with the drop shadow, where we can disconnect the drop shadow and then start messing about with it with different layer modes. We can transform it, and that'll lead us into the next video where we start bending it. All right, thanks for playing along. I'll see you in the next video. Hi there, this video is all about bendy shadows. Can you see underneath the image here, I'm turning it on and off? It's this kind of bent paper look. The actual image itself is actually perfectly square. It's just the shadow that you bend. It's a neat little trick you can do when you're presenting your work or uploading it to, say, a web gallery to kind of give it a bit of depth. It'll only take us a couple of minutes. Let's learn how to do it now in Photoshop. All right, to put the bendy shadow underneath, let's go to File, Open, and in your exercise files under Shadows, there's one called Curved Shadow.jpg. So open that one up. Now this is just a flattened JPEG of something we made earlier in the course. And basically we have all the tools and techniques already for this one to work. We just need to combine them in a special way. First thing we need to do is we need to generate a little bit more of a white background. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab our crop tool. It's this one here, fifth tool down. It's going to make sure content aware is off, because I don't want to actually extend the background. I want a bit of a white background. What we can do in the top right, just click, hold, and drag. Click, hold, and drag down the bottom left here. Just give myself a little bit of extra space. Drag it so it's in the middle-ish. Hit return on my keyboard. Now what I'd like to do is I'd like to fill the background with white. So I'm going to make a new layer. I'm going to put it at the bottom. I should call it background. I'm not going to lie to you. I wouldn't, but you should. I'm going to go to edit. I'm going to go to fill. And I'm going to say fill with white. Click OK. So I've got a white background now. So with layer 0 selected, I'm going to add my drop shadow. So just like we did in the previous tutorial, there's only a slight change in this one. So I've got a drop shadow. It depends on how much of a bendy shadow. Okay, the one thing that you might do to save yourself some time is get the angle to be straight up and down. So it's at 90. It's really hard to drag to 90. If you hold down shift while you're dragging it though, it does lock it into like 5-degree increments. Or just type it in. That seems easier. I'm happy with mine at 31 and 24. That was just what was left over from the last tutorial. You can mess about with yours. Let's click OK. The magic happens here. You can right click the drop shadow and say create layer. Warning, you'll click that, don't show again. I'm going to train this, so I need to keep host stuff on. It's annoying, but it needs to be there every time I teach somebody that's new. And it's only annoying for me. So with the layer selected, okay, the drop shadow selected, make sure you've got this one selected, is instead of going to edit, transform, we use distort, we're going to use warp. Remember, warp's more like fabric. Distort's more like playing with angles, warp's more like turning it into fabric. And what we're going to do is these two little dots here are going to control the bend. Okay, so I'm kind of showing you what they do. I'm going to undo that on the back to the bottom. And I'm just going to drag this one up to about there. The same with this one. It really depends on how much of a bend you want at the bottom, so I want mine just a little bit more. It will depend on where you started with your drop shadow as well. And when you're finished, click return on your keyboard. And there's that kind of like, makes the image look like it's sitting on the ground. It looks like it's a little bit more bent. You might lower the opacity of this layer here just to kind of knock it back a little bit, depending on what you want. I'm happy with it. It's a cool effect, and it's really quite nice when you're uploading these things to, say, a web gallery and you want to kind of make your images stand out when you're presenting them. We'll do a full section, like a full category on presenting work in the advanced Photoshop course. So you want to go into like full mockups, we'll do that in the advanced one. But for now, it is bendy shadows. I love it. All right, I will see you in the next video. Hi there, this video we're going to look at exporting a few different ways. Okay, we're going to look at print, then we're going to look at social and web, and then we'll look at exporting for other Adobe products. Okay, you're sharing it between your Photoshop document, between, say, Illustrator, InDesign, After Effects. Let's start with print. Okay, let's say we made this earlier in the course. Okay, we want to get this out to our printer. The best way to give it to them instead of a JPEG is something called a PDF. I don't need to explain, you probably know what a PDF is, but to get it out of Photoshop, go to File, and we go to Save As. It's a weird kind of place for it. Okay, and down here we want to find Photoshop PDF. I'm going to stick it onto my desktop. I'm going to give it a name. This is my All-Stars. I put the date backwards often when I'm sending things out. So if there's any amends, it's got some sort of kind of code on it so I know which version is what and which version the amends were made to. And the nice thing about this, I'm going to click on Save. It's going to freak out a little bit. It's going to open up a PDF document. All you need to do is set it to high quality print and turn preserve Photoshop capabilities off. You turn this off because basically with this on, it's just a Photoshop document. It's not really ready for print. The file size is huge and it keeps in the PDF lots of detail that the printer just doesn't need. So let's turn it off. Let's click Save PDF. And that now on my desktop should be, on my desktop, All-Stars PDF. It's small enough. You can see it's only 1.7 megabytes and that can be sent to a printer. Now let's say I want to send something else to print, but I just want, instead of a PDF, they've asked for a JPEG. Okay, this is pretty easy. I'm going to do it to this option we've got here. Made it. I want to send it out to my printer and they just want a JPEG. When you go for a print JPEG, it's different from a web JPEG. They have slight variances. They look the same. But one has a lot more data, like this one here is going to have a lot more as a print document. So to do it, let's go to File, Save As. Okay, and then here, let's pick JPEG, just the JPEG one, not any of the other fancy ones. We just want the plain old JPEG. Let's stick it on my desktop, and I'm going to call this one Bottle Island. And if you don't like the dates backwards, just a V1, V2 works just as good. Now, if this is going to a printer, say I'm a photographer and I've got this looking perfect, I probably want to crank this up to as large a file as I can. It's going to make the file size bigger, but it's going to retain a lot of the quality that I've done and put into my Photoshop document. Okay, so a PDF is the all-round, just send a PDF. It's easy, it's emailable, the file sizes are small, and what you don't know is that it still retains a lot of the vector that's in some of, say, the logos and text, so it will print nicer. But if you just have images, a JPEG will print just as good because there is no vector, there is no logos and text to keep that crisp edge on. As long as when you're saving that JPEG, you use the file save as, not the file export save for web or export as, which we'll do in a second. Just make sure that quality slider is dragged to the top. Okay, so that's the print. Let's look at going out for social or web. So we've got this object here, and we want to send this out to our website, okay? And they've given us a specific size we need to use. We looked at this before. We're going to go to image. We're going to go to image size. And at the moment, it's way too big. It's becoming quite a big file, and it doesn't need to be this big. It's just way too big. So I'm going to make it, I've asked for it to be no more than 1500 pixels wide. So I've switched it to pixels, put in this width. I've clicked OK. Now I want to save it as one of two options. Okay, if I want this background in, it's going to work best as a JPEG. JPEGs are great for quality and they keep the file size really small. The one thing they don't do though is transparency. If I want this background off and I want just the model on a transparent background, this only happens generally when you're going to a website and they want to be able to see through to other parts of the website, this kind of part to be invisible. So let's look at both. So with it on, let's go to File, Export, and we're going to send a JPEG, but we're going to do it the proper way for web. Okay, we're going to use the export as. It doesn't seem as exciting as say for web, but export as has some nicer features. Go to export as. The good thing about export as is that, you know how we went to image size and adjusted it? We can do it in here on the fly. We don't have to do it that way I just showed you. That was a waste of time. Okay, we can do it here. Keep the original at the big size and just adjust the size on the way through. We can pick a JPEG. The nice thing about this JPEG is that it's different from a print one, mainly because it excludes some of the data that is only needed for a printing document, not for going online. So the file size is going to be smaller. Then it's up to the slider here on your quality. Whereas it went to print, we're not too worried so much about file size because we're probably emailing it or sticking it on a USB stick, so we can keep it quite high. But we're going to a website, I want it as low as you can go. So what you want to do is down here, be at 100%, and then just go as low as you're wanting to go. Watch this, I get down to like 2%. You might zoom in one more, because you can see it's starting to do all that yucky noisy stuff. Okay, so how high do I need to go? It's up to you.